Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to part 2 of Community Infrastructure Service Committee meeting, Monday, December 5th, 2016. Just want to make a note to committee that there's been 2 items that have some amendments to the wording, and one of them is in part 2 with the consent items. Items 2 through 8 should be carried in one motion. What was that? Is that the one that? No, that's not it. Oh, sorry. Okay. Wrong page. Okay, so item number 10, Zeller Drive bike lane. The note to be, please note that the committee clause 2 of the staff recommendation needs an amendment to include northwest as the direction rather than just west due to the curvature of the roadway. And then item number 12, sidewalk winter maintenance. Item number 11, Dune Village Road traffic calming review. Please note to the committee that an additional clause will need to be added to the recommendation to update the uniform traffic bylaw accordingly. Okay, with that, we're on to discussion items, and we're going to deal with item number 9. Consent items 2 to 8. Moved by Councillor Davey. Councillor Gazzola.
I have some questions.
Okay. We have a recommendation to get out of on which item?
On a number of them.
Okay. To move out of, get consent items on the table. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Go ahead, Councillor Gazzola.
I don't have much. Just the first one is on this renewing this additional contract. The report talks about regional sewer and water main. Are we talking about the region, or is that a company, or what? Who? On the item, it's item 3. Sorry.
Mr. Reedham?
The extension of water main sewer.
Through the chair, that's a company, not the region.
It is a company?
It is. That's correct.
It's like not Regional Sewer and Water Main Limited or company or whatever. Anyhow, I'm curious. We got a $4 million project, and it was done in January of this year, and now we're quibbling about 12 meters more of sewer pipe. I don't know, what is that? Have they been...
Through the chair.
Why have we heard from them before this? We're almost into 2017.
So through the chair, this discrepancy was found through an audit of the books, and then the sewer was measured. It was about a half a kilometer of sewer, so being off about 2.5% isn't unusual. It usually is picked up in the as-built drawings, and this one was missed for some reason.
This is 12 meters more. 12 meters isn't a half a kilometer.
Through the chair, the original contract installation was about a half a kilometer, so it was out by 12 meters, which is about 2.5% on the total installation. Also, this is paid for by the developer, so this is a flow-through cost for us.
Well, there's no free lunch. Somebody has to pay the developers too, but that's okay.
Any other?
No, that's fine.
That's fine.
I have another question on the level 2 pedestrian crossovers.
Go ahead and ask your question.
Okay, now I'm curious as to, somewhere in the report I read that there were 9 of those, and then when we talked about the money, we talked about 32 of them. Well, what is the right answer?
Yeah, thank you. Through the chair, in response to that question, there is a total of 9 roundabouts that we're proposing to be converted with the signs. The 32 is the number of legs at those roundabouts that we have to treat with signage.
Okay, so for nine of them, it's going to cost us $51,000. That's almost $6,000. And what are we? We're just putting some painting in there, right? We're not putting any lights or anything.
Through the chair, we are replacing a number of signs, including the pedestrian crossing signs, the pedestrian warning ahead signs, and also pavement marking revisions. This estimate has been based on a proactive estimate prepared by traffic operations,
Prepared by who?
our traffic operations group.
Proactive. I just going back to what is happening here and why is this changing from where we are? Is this something that the province has laid down or?
Through the chair, this is a direct result of new legislation that has been put in place by the province that provides local municipalities with another pedestrian control tool to use at the municipal level. And the recommendation put forth in front of you is based on a number of meetings that have been held with the region and area municipalities to do a uniform, consistent approach across the region so that we create a similar expectation for all drivers within the region.
Okay, now we're just talking about roundabouts in the local roads. We're not talking about the big ones like on Homer Watson and stuff like that.
That's
Right?
correct. That's being dealt with by the region of Waterloo.
Yeah. Have we had a lot of incidences on the minor roundabouts on our local roads?
In response, while not having the numbers in front of me, the number of pedestrian collisions at roundabouts that city-owned and jurisdiction under the City of Kitchener has been negligible, very few.
So that's why I question why then are we going through this change? Is it required by the province?
In response, I would suggest it's not a requirement, but at the same time, City of Kitchener, along with the region and the other municipalities, have been observing operations at roundabouts. Notice that we're still getting challenges to have drivers provide right-of-way to pedestrians when they're crossing at these roundabouts, and we feel that this new legislation put through by the province gives us a stronger ability to get that driver adherence.
Thank you.
Councillor Fernandez?
Yeah, I too have a question about the additional $37,000 on the contractor purchase order extension. Who would have made that error? I know it's a flow through, but eventually when this is a credit for refund agreement, right?
Through the chair, I believe that's correct.
Okay, so when this would have come up in our capital budget, we're going to have to pay that back to the developer. That's how it works, right?
Through the chair, I believe the developer is paying for the cost of this work. Unless there's a refund portion associated with it, it's all paid for by the developer.
Okay, we don't have any cost at all for this, ever.
Through the chair, that's correct.
Okay, then why are we approving the $37,000 if the developer has to pay for the whole thing?
Through the chair, we pay for the work up front through the credit that they give us, and then we pay them the refund at the end. So for the work done, we typically would pay the cost for the work.
Okay, so if it's over what we budgeted for it, then we're going to eat that cost, though.
Through the chair, it's still within budget. This came after an audit after the project was closed out, so we need to reopen the PO.
I heard that. Okay, I'm sorry. I don't want to cut you off. It's just I know I have limited time. Okay, I guess my confusion was that I thought we ended up having to refund that money back to the developer when that project comes into our capital forecast. But if that's not the case, then, and it's still within budget, we won't be eating any of this cost. And that's my only concern.
Through the chair, that's my understanding.
Okay, thank you. My other question is related to the Dune Village Road traffic calming review. When I look at the one intersection, which is the Pioneer Drive and Dune Village Road going towards Homer Watson, one of the changes that we're making is making a right-hand turn and a throughway on the right-hand side lane.
Mr. Carmichael?
I'm concerned that there is a bus stop there and that we're going to end up having a backup of that lane as it moves forward.
Through the chair, we can...
Okay, this is a discussion item.
Oh,
We're
is it?
dealing with item number 11. Is
sorry.
that what you're talking about?
Oh, it is?
I'm talking about the... Yes, you're right, it is a discussion item. I'm sorry, I'm jumping ahead. I apologize. I'll leave that for now. But now you're ready for my question.
Councillor Yaneski?
Yeah, back to the New Dundee Road extension. It puzzled me too, the $37,000 that was being requested, and then I look on the page 2, it says financial implications, none. So that to me meant there's no implication to the city, as you pointed out. Yet the next line says funding will be provided from the Dune South project account, which somehow means it's back to the city. So I'm just wondering if the right hand doesn't know what the left hand, or is this something else that deals differently? I don't know. Help me out.
Mr. Reedman?
Through the chair. So when we received the money from the developer, we put it in an account to do the work. So this is the account that it's being drawn from, but it's the account was filled from a deposit from the developer.
Okay, so it's got nothing to do with development charges in the end.
That's correct.
Okay, so really, in bottom line, no implication to the city. It's just a flow-through process stuff.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we have no further questions. All those in favor? Opposed? Consent items are carried. So we're going to move on to discussion items, and we're dealing with discussion item number 9 pertaining to the 2017 sidewalk infill reconstruction projects, which we have 5 delegations registered to speak. And just to remind delegates, pursuant to Council's procedural bylaw, delegations are permitted to address the committee for a maximum of 5 minutes. And our first delegate up is Vicky Goal. Sorry if I pronounced any of the last names incorrectly. I do apologize. Welcome. Oh, you can pass them to the clerk, and the clerk will. And note to committee, I think we have a couple of emails in front of us with regards to this matter as well, I think. Aberdeen Road? No, it's maybe. And I have a petition here. I think this is for another item. Thank you. Whenever you're ready.
Okay. All right. So we know sidewalks are a pretty hot topic, and hence the reason last year in 2015 that the city came up with a new infill policy. 2 of the biggest words in that policy were safety and pedestrian-friendly environment, also complete street and sustainability. In terms of the area that we're looking here in Westmount, it's a pretty unique area. I think if you talk to most people, they would say it's the most desirable area in Kitchener-Waterloo. It's quite a mixed area. We have people who have lived there for more than 50 years. We have a lot of reconstruct, teardowns, rebuilds, a lot of new families. It's a real mix. The area that we're talking about is also bounded by Westmount Golf Course, which is a private golf course, but which is pretty unique because they also, in non-golf times, allow the residents to use their space, so we have a lot of green space there. The area that we're talking about as well is in the same neighborhood as Marina and Duchess, which are 2 streets that were reconstructed this summer and fall that did not have sidewalks put on the other side. So just a little bit of background. In terms of the sidewalk infill policy that was implemented last year, one of the things that is done is all residents within a 400-meter radius are let known of the what's going to be happening. If you take a look at this picture, this is from the staff report. The black outline is the area of the residents that were let known of the policy and the sidewalk that was going to be constructed. The biggest area in that is Westmount Golf Course. They were not told of this policy. If you look at the orange circle, the part where it does not have the streets, that's Waterloo. They were not told, the residents of Waterloo were not told about this infill sidewalk, as well as anything out of that black line were not told. So for instance, Huntley Crescent, which is very close to the proposed infill sidewalk, were not told. So again, sidewalk infill policy says that everybody will be told within a 400-meter radius. That was not done in this case. Surveys were handed out, and residents came back with lots of comments. Unfortunately, you don't get to read those comments because you only have everything sort of summarized and for, against, or indifferent. A lot of comments were made. People were concerned more about the fact on Westmount Road that we do not have a sidewalk between Forsyth and Union and that we do not need one in such a quiet residential area. The other thing that came up time and time again is people are very nervous about having a sidewalk on a golf course because of the safety issue. It's a driving range there. It's also a putting green. People were very nervous about having a sidewalk there and walking there with children. The other part with the infill policy is that a priority ranking system is done. In this case, we were awarded 50 points. We were given 25 points because we were within 800 meters of Westmount School, 20 points because we were close to a big employer, and 5 points to basically complete the sidewalk. The 20 points that's given for a major employer, that's if an employer is greater than 500 employees. That was Economical Life. I called them myself. They do not have 500 employees. So that means really those 20 points should not have been given. So they do not have 500 employees. So that 50 points that we were given should really have been taken down to 30 points. If we have 30 points, that then changes us from a priority 2 to a priority 3. That changes what gets done. So the other thing, if it's a priority 2, if we go back, if by chance we had that number, the reasons for not having a sidewalk put in are cultural heritage landscape study, which we are part of, and Brad from Westmount Golf Course will talk to that. The other thing is we have several mature trees, both on the 2 properties that are in this area, as well as the golf course. Some of them have 12 feet circumference. We have a blue spruce that's 70 years old, that's 6 feet from the sidewalk. All of those will be affected by the infill of the golf course. One of the big things again with sidewalks is walkability for all. We have several people in our neighborhood. We have people with strollers. My parents moved into the area in 1960. My dad is 95. He still walks the area with his walker, and he said, we are crazy to put a sidewalk in. It's a totally safe area. My neighbor across the street uses a scooter for mobility. She does not want a sidewalk. She likes it without. So, quick in summary. The way the sidewalk infill policy was done, not everybody was notified within that 400-meter radius. The way the priority numbers were calculated was incorrect because we were not close to an employer with 500 or more employees. So that would change us to a priority 3, which would mean that we are farther down the list. If there's enough citizen dissension on this, which there is, then we should not have the sidewalk policy, sidewalk put in here. The other thing that was confusing with people, there's an information session tomorrow night at Westmount Public School. A lot of people actually thought that was when they got to bring forth their motions, not today, so that was a little confusing for people. Okay, that's it, I'm done.
Oh, hold on. This committee has some questions for you.
Okay.
Councillor Yaneski.
Hi, Ms. Gold. Thank you very much for coming in, making your presentation. I have a few questions to ask you. And how many supporters do you have with you in the audience, if they could put their hands up? Okay, all in one section, just to be sure. The other question I have is, you were aware that there were some trees cut down on Aberdeen Road opposite the golf course back last winter. Did you know why they were cut down, or what your comments are on that? Because they were right probably where the sidewalk is proposed to be located.
Right, so it actually wasn't across from the golf course. It was on golf course. I'm guessing maybe that was city property, though, but right on that. No, as far as no one I know in the neighborhood was informed about why they were cut down. We just saw the crews there one day taking them down.
Were you surprised?
Absolutely. That's one of the reasons I think people move into the neighborhood is because of the trees that are so mature and huge, and it's pretty impressive, that area. So.
Okay, in the staff report that you eventually got,
It's noted in there that there was a survey done back earlier in the year for getting feedback, etc. There was eventually a notice sent out that this would be coming to the committee. But did anybody in the audience or in terms of the neighborhood get a copy of this staff report with all the information as to what the recommendation would be?
Right. I went around and talked to every single neighbor in the surveyed area. No one received a copy of the staff report. I called myself to City Hall and got a copy of the staff report, and then offered to give that report to anyone who was in the surveyed area and make a copy of it myself.
So you're the only one who received a copy because you asked for it?
Correct.
And nobody else got a copy?
As far as I know.
Okay, thank you very much.
We have no further questions. Thank you. Up next, we have Mr. Denick.
I do have a handout here, so I'll just, I don't know if I got enough copies for home, so I apologize. First of all, thank you for having us here this afternoon. Greatly appreciated. I won't go into all of the detail here because Vicky did a great job of covering most of it, but just a couple of concerns. So I want to talk about the concerns about the process, the communication, and the potential impact of the project. I'd like to speak to the process first. So Westmount Golf Club has never directly communicated with either letter dated July the 5th or August the 9th, or sorry, November the 9th, from the city regarding the process proposed work on Aberdeen. The city staff confirmed that we were missed with all notifications. Our neighbors did provide us with the information which triggered our letter dated August the 9th. This letter was never responded to and was never brought up in the staff report. City staff again confirmed that this letter was missed as part of the process as well. The sidewalk infill process, if you see image number 1 there on the map, it looks like that part of the process was missed. There's supposed to be some detailed or some drawings done in regard to the process, and it doesn't seem, speaking to the city staff, that was completed. I'll talk about the concerns that we have as the golf course, and Vicky talked about the pedestrian safety. That's a large concern of ours. Lots of kids and adults use this area to walk on, and if we put a sidewalk in there, it's just going to bring the pedestrians closer to the golf course than the practice facility. Our staff have concerns too with the removal of the snow in that area on the sidewalk as well. Obviously, we'd have to take a vehicle down to this area to be able to remove the snow, and all the equipment would have to be unloaded on the street. Property damage, you can see in image number 2 there that anytime that there's frost, and a lot of the property damage, the large concern is when the temperatures change and we have frost. If there's any tracks of foot traffic on the greens, it would kill the grass, and it takes a long time for that grass to heal. So a number of concerns in regard to the property damage in regard to the frost. The trees, we had our arborist out to study, to look at the trees in the area. They are concerned with the impact of these trees. And we did look at our neighbor's property as well with our arborist, and they had some more concerns with our neighbor's trees, actually. And then grading. If you see images 3 and 4 in your package there, you can see that there's some grading concerns. There's about a 2 to 3 foot change in elevation, so we have concerns with the grading and water removal of the area once the sidewalk goes in. So being the largest property owner, I guess we just have some questions for staff. We weren't issued the letter, so we're wondering why our concerns after the August letter wasn't addressed. And as Vicky said, we believe there's other residents that didn't receive the information. What report or analysis was completed and identified possible safety concerns, and if it was done, why wasn't Westmount, as a property owner, not involved in such report? The traffic study and the snow removal. Currently, the City of Kitchener dumps the snow removal from Union Street onto our property where the proposed sidewalk is scheduled to go. And we are concerned that there's nowhere else for that snow to go, and we would have to remove the snow at that time. Since we haven't seen a detailed drawing, we can't answer in regard to the drainage issues that might occur when the sidewalk is completed. And city staff have confirmed that none of their own golf course experts were consulted regarding the proposed damage to the grass and the golf course used. Westmount was not consulted either. Obviously, the city owns another golf course locally, Rockway, which is completely fenced in. We're assuming that fence, when you look at the fence at Rockway, it actually separates the sidewalk and the golf course. We're assuming that's done because of golfer and pedestrian safety, and also to make sure there's no damage done to the golf course. Just wondered what analysis was done in relation to Westmount and its property in relation to the sidewalk and the golf course. I do want to talk just briefly about the cultural and heritage landscape study. We understand that obviously our property and the neighboring properties have been deemed that under the landscape study. When they proposed the sidewalk, how was the sidewalk and the impact of the sidewalk considered in relation to the cultural and heritage landscape study? So just some questions for staff. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Denick. We do have a question for you. Councillor Yaneski.
Thank you for coming in, Mr. Lynch, and for your presentation. I do have a few questions based on comments that you just raised. Drainage issue, is this an issue that is in the neighborhood or is more on your property or is coming onto the Westmount Golf Course lands from the area, or could you maybe just elaborate a little bit on that?
Just with the proposed sidewalk, we're just wondering with the change of elevation, what is the drainage plan in relation to where the sidewalk is going, and how does the city anticipate dealing with the change in elevation as it relates to water and drainage? Because we haven't seen a plan, we have no idea how that's going to be dealt with.
Okay, and that's a good question. And you're aware that there's a public meeting, open house, tomorrow evening on the Aberdeen, the entire reconstruction process, which is not considered today. This is just a separate thing, but the sidewalk sort of ties in with it, with that. So, are you going to be there, or somebody from?
I will not be there, unfortunately. Tomorrow we have a capital meeting at the club, so unfortunately most of my members will not be in attendance. Their properties abut to the property and also the sidewalk area, which we're discussing here today. They'll be at Westmount for voting for our capital projects for next year.
Okay. Well, I'll be there at that meeting at the open house, and I'll touch base with the engineers and see what the implications are, how they'll handle it, because I have no idea. That's the whole purpose of the meeting tomorrow night, to ask some questions and find out, and we can do that. Next question I have pertains to the question I asked to the earlier delegation about the trees that were at the end of the golf course lands, but actually on the right-of-way of Aberdeen that were cut down last year. Were you aware that that was going to happen?
We were aware the city did notify us that was going to happen, and they were ash trees, and part of their the city forestry plan, I believe, that it was included that they would be removed. We did ask if there was an opportunity to, I guess you can inject the ash trees, and we asked them if there was an opportunity at that time to inject the trees, but because they're also located underneath the hydro line, that the city didn't want to inject them and therefore took them out.
And so they were all ash trees?
They were.
Okay. Now, you also mentioned that the city, during the wintertime when they do snow removal, however they operate along Aberdeen and Union there, I guess they take the snow and they just push it onto the boulevard and onto your lands there for, I guess, just to get it out of the way, I guess, basically, right?
That is correct. So what happens at the end of Union Street, they push the snow straight ahead onto our property right where the proposed sidewalk is going. And if you looked at the area, I'm not so sure that there's any other opportunity for them to put the snow anywhere else. They've been doing it there for years, and obviously it's not of great concern of ours currently because it's just going on to green space. But as the sidewalk goes in there and then having to deal with the sidewalk and the snow removal, it's going to be an issue as we move forward.
Okay, that's an interesting point. Right now, there's a sidewalk on the east side of Aberdeen, and it runs right from City of Waterloo border and Forsyth Drive all the way down to Glasgow. And, of course, pedestrians are walking and using it as well. Do you find, or have you noticed any pedestrians walking along the west side where there is no sidewalk opposite the golf course? And if there are, do they meander onto the golf course thinking it's open public space or something like that, as opposed to being a golf course and seeing golf balls flying by or something like that?
Good question. So in the wintertime, we do have some the residents use the golf course to ski and to walk around. But typically, what happens is they walk down the sidewalk that's currently there, and then walk up the sidewalk on Inverness, and then enter the main entrance of the property. We don't have a whole lot of our neighbors and/or pedestrians that would enter the golf course from the street on Aberdeen, cutting through the driving range. They would come up the sidewalk typically that's already existing.
So, okay, I appreciate the answer. And the final question, do you have cross-country skiers utilizing that portion of the open spaces as well? Or is that part of a program that you may offer as part of the golf course, or is it just open to anybody?
It's open to anyone. Anyone in the community can come and ski. Most of our members do ski there, or snowshoe, which is a popular sport these days. So typically they would park somewhere in Aberdeen and or in our parking lot and enter the golf course and either walk up or ski up at that time.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Councillor Ineski. We do have some more further questions for you. We have Councillor Gazzola.
Yeah, I don't have any questions of the delegate. My questions are with staff.
Okay, we'll wait. Councillor Fernandez?
Yes, thanks, Brad, for coming in and raising some other issues. My question to you is, along Aberdeen, where the golf course abuts that road, is there fencing or tree line or something along there right now?
There's no fencing there currently, but there is a tree line. There was a greater tree line before the ash trees were removed. It was a distinguishing between the road and the golf course proper, I guess. But there's nothing there now except a few trees that line that area currently.
And are those mature trees, or are they just the replacement from the
No,
EAB?
they are mature trees. I believe there's some pines there, and there might even be some maples up on the corner. But there's one large tree that abuts our property with Mr. Ruby's property too. That would be a large concern. It's a maple tree. It's a beautiful tree.
So those trees would have to be removed for the sidewalk?
Yeah, our arborist is concerned about them. He hasn't issued me an official report on whether they need to be removed yet or not, but he is concerned about disrupting the roots of those trees, and because we don't have a detail of where the sidewalk is going, it's very tough to distinguish how much impact that sidewalk is going to have on that root system of those trees.
Okay. So outside of the trees, this is a driving and putting range area,
That's
right?
correct.
Do you think that if you've got pedestrians walking along that sidewalk, are you going to have to incur additional capital costs to put up some kind of a screen or something to protect the public from balls that are going to go down that way?
I think if it became an issue, I mean, that would be our only option. I just look at what the city did with the Rockaway Golf Course. Originally, they didn't have a fence on the one side of the property, and I'm assuming that fence was installed to protect not only the pedestrians but also the golfers. So, I could see at some point most likely that would have to happen.
Okay. Yeah, that's one of the concerns I have, is that this will force you to add additional capital costs to your already rising capital costs, as you have suggested.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
We have no further questions, Mr. Denick. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next delegation, Mr. Ruby. Welcome, Mr. Ruby.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I thought maybe I'd just comment on a couple of things that were discussed already. One is a possible fence along the edge of the golf course. I think that would be a real shame, because right now in the off-season that whole area is open. People can walk on the golf course. In the wintertime they ski on the golf course. If you put a fence across there, it would be much more difficult for people to get on the course and use the course. And yet if you put a sidewalk along there, I'm not sure there's any other choice from a safety issue, because it's a driving range. And as for the drainage issue, when it rains, my house backs on the golf course. I'm in the corner of Westgate and Aberdeen. And when it rains, a small lake usually forms on the golf course near Aberdeen, which gradually drains away. My neighbor across the street on Aberdeen on the east side called me the other day and wanted to talk to me, and he said in the spring he usually gets water in his basement, as do some of his neighbors. And he's very concerned if they put a sidewalk in on the east side, that's going to aggravate the problem even more. Just thought I'd mention that. I think it's worth pointing out that there are no houses facing Aberdeen on the west side. There's only the golf course and my house and Vicky's house, which is across the street. Our side lots face on Aberdeen, but there's no houses directly facing on the street. So a couple of things I'd like to mention. Vicky mentioned the 50 points, and probably should only be 25, and we should maybe be priority 3 instead of a priority 2. And as Brad mentioned, the infill process, calls for a conceptual design to be done before this meeting and to be discussed if needed. There's no design. I talked to your people 10 days ago, and there is no design. At least it was not 10 days ago. No, so nobody's ever seen it. So I think your planning department agrees that it hasn't been done. The planning process also calls for, after that, for an additional consultation about all the issues. Your planning department agrees also that this has not been done. And there are many issues, that have been talked about: safety, snow removal, drainage issues, tree issues, turf issues, cultural and heritage issues. None of this stuff, none of these things have been talked about with any of the residents in any way, shape, or form. Never have come up. And we think there needs to be a discussion about the impact on the character of the street and the neighborhood. A survey was done, but the results seem to have been ignored. There's only 3 properties that actually are directly affected, but the great majority of the respondents, 28 in all, voted against the sidewalk. And I think this is because they appreciate that Aberdeen, between Inverness and Forsyth, is a rather unique street with a golf course there, and it's certainly one of the loveliest streets in Westmount. And Westmount Golf Course itself is one of the finest golf courses in Canada, and is a real treasure, I think, for our city. I believe it would be a shame to put a sidewalk in that would degrade the street and the golf course. In addition, do this without any consultation on the issues whatsoever, because there's been none. Finally, I could say that if we didn't put a sidewalk in, the city would probably save a huge amount of money. You could reduce everyone's taxes. That'd be very popular. You'd all get reelected. We wouldn't get the sidewalk we don't want. It's a win-win situation. Don't put it in. Thank you very much. Okay.
Thank you for coming in, Mr. Ruby, and making your presentation. You said you live at the corner of Aberdeen and Westgate Walk?
Yes.
So your flankage of your property will be affected.
Right.
I'm assuming your house faces Westgate Walk, so I'm just talking Aberdeen being your flankage.
My side yard is on Aberdeen, and I have 2 big trees there which have been mentioned. I was going to bring it up, but it's been talked about, so I didn't. But I have a beautiful big blue spruce. That's about 5 feet from the road. It'll be killed for sure. And beside it, I have a purple beech, which is a lovely tree as well. Both these trees I put in 10 years ago with big backhoe. They were fair-sized trees then, and it'd be a real shame to see them go.
I was out there last week, and I've been out there several times over the many times in that area, and I was just trying to determine where the property line is of your property line and the rest of the residents, how far it is from the curb, because I was trying to determine where that impact was of the city right-of-way line and your property, and how much will be affected by your landscaping. So, I mean, do you know where it is roughly?
I'm not sure exactly where the line is, I got to say that. It would certainly have an effect on my property because I'd lose these 2 lovely trees. My driveway would be greatly affected. On the corner going into Westgate, there are gates on each side, and there's shrubbery around the gates. The sidewalk would go right through the shrubbery on my side. So the gates wouldn't look nearly as nice as they look now.
Yeah, I saw those gates. Those gates are not on your property, are they? No?
I presume they're on Westgate. I'm not sure. I really don't know.
Okay. That's fine. Do you have a sidewalk along Westgate Walk?
We don't have a sidewalk along
There's
Westgate.
no sidewalks along Westgate Walk at all?
None.
Correct?
I could add also that my wife is handicapped, has been for some years, and she drives a scooter, and we go for walks regularly, and we never have any problem with not having a sidewalk on the east side. As Vicki said earlier, it's easy to get around. People like to walk. It's not a problem.
Okay, good. You mentioned at the beginning of your presentation about drainage and some issues, et cetera. Where does the problem come from? What causes this problem?
Water drains down from about where the clubhouse is, which is about 400 yards west of Aberdeen, and drains right down through the practice range and sort of backs up before it gets to Aberdeen on the golf course and gradually drains away underground. And I guess keeps going that direction towards Union Street and towards the east side of Aberdeen and so on.
Okay, so this drainage is with the golf course people, basically, that you see
Well, the water's coming from the golf course.
coming from there. Okay.
Not sure
All right,
if you're-
I don't have any other questions. Thank you.
Okay.
Yes, Mr. Ruby, sorry, I just wanted to clarify with you, when you were talking about the fence,
Yeah.
were you saying you wouldn't want a fence because it would allow people to walk on the golf course at that point?
As it is now, in the wintertime, we get all kinds of cross-country skiers out there. It's a great place to cross-country ski, and people can walk on the course when it's closed. You know, it's open from late April till early November. But in the wintertime, it's a beautiful place for kids, and there's little hills there. Kids go tobogganing. And the main place they get on the course, at that end of the course, is right at Aberdeen there, right where the golf course butts up against Aberdeen. And as Brad said, if you put a sidewalk in, then people are going to, in the summertime, are going to be coming off the sidewalk. Probably kids will be walking on the sidewalk. They don't stay on the sidewalk, and then they're in the driving range.
Right.
And this becomes a problem. So maybe, I don't know, I'm not on the board of the golf course, but I would think that maybe they'll have to consider putting a fence up, and that'd be a real shame, because for the public, they'd lose access to the course for 6 months.
Okay, I just wanted to understand where you were coming from, because I think we were talking about two different things, but
Right.
now I understand. Okay, thank you for clarifying for me.
Thank you.
Yeah. Brian, thank you for coming in and thank you for your comments.
Good to see you, John.
I have a theoretical question for you. You know, this council really prides itself on its public engagement policy. And based on your experience in this situation, how do you rate our public engagement?
How do I rate what?
Our public engagement.
Communications?
No, public engagement.
Public
how
engagement,
we
well-
how we interact with our residents.
We haven't been engaged very much. We'd like to engage a lot more on this project to get some information. So far we haven't been it's been very difficult to make any progress in getting information.
There hasn't been any meeting other than one called for tomorrow night. That's
been
the
nothing.
first opportunity you've really had then.
Yeah. There was a mailing in August, and a lot of people, including myself, responded to that. And I talked to people in the planning department, and they indicated then they didn't think this would go forward. And I said, that's fine. If it should change, let me know. Middle of November, I got a phone call from a friend. I was in Florida, saying that they're going to put the sidewalks in. And that's the next thing we heard. I never got the report until Vicki brought it across the street for me. All I've got is two mailings, one in August, this one in November, saying there's going to be a meeting here today.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks.
Okay.
Councillor Marsh?
Thank you. Mr. Ruby, I just have a question about the public engagement that Mr. Gazzola Councillor Gazzola was asking you about. Did you hear at all from the City of Waterloo? It is actually a City of Waterloo project that the City of Kitchener apparently is supporting them on. Did they outreach to you at all?
Never heard anything
No.
from the City of Waterloo. And in fact, the meeting tomorrow night, I only heard about it because Brad here told me about it. He saw it in
Yeah.
the Waterloo newspaper.
Yeah. Okay. I appreciate that, and I'll have more questions of staff then about that part. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ruby. We have no further questions.
Thank you for your time. Thank you.
Our next delegate, Sandy Matheson.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for my first opportunity at civic activism. I don't like the idea of the sidewalk. It destroys the appearance, the park-like atmosphere. It's unnecessary. It's got some pretty interesting challenges. I would be frightened by the driveway coming out of Westgate Walk if the start of that driveway was moved 8 foot closer to the house. It would make the driveway much steeper, and you probably have to put a retaining wall in to hold up the parking area onto Westgate Walk. So it's more expensive than simply putting in 5 feet of concrete. I will point out, if you walk in the area, you'll know that there's water in the ground there. You can feel cold dampness when you walk by the end of Westmount Golf Course. So it wouldn't take much additional water to add to flooding, flood conditions coming off it. That's only a casual comment. My essential disagreement here is you're spending money to accomplish very little, and I don't see the value in doing so, and I don't like the change in the neighborhood either. So that's it.
Okay, we do have a question for you, Councillor Yaneski.
Thank you for coming in and making your presentation, Mr. Matheson. Have you lived in a neighborhood in Aberdeen for a while?
Speak up, Zig, I'm deaf.
I'm sorry?
I said, speak up, I'm deaf.
Have you observed many people at all, if anybody, walking along the golf course frontage on the grass portion as opposed to the sidewalk, as opposed to the road?
I've seen people walking their dogs move onto the grass because that makes scooping a little easier. But other than that, no. I walk by there most nights. I walk on the road, and I don't see people walking onto the golf course.
You live on Aberdeen, I understand. correct?
I'm at 34 Aberdeen.
Okay, that's on the east side.
That's on the
Okay,
far
that's where all the
side, yes.
sidewalks are, and you're quite content with the sidewalks over there?
I'm sorry, Zig.
You live on the side where all the sidewalks are on your side of the street.
There is a sidewalk on my side of the
Yeah.
street.
And you're content with that? Like it's sufficient for the neighborhood?
Sorry, Zig.
That sidewalk on the east side is sufficient and enough for the neighborhood?
I know you're talking about the sidewalk on the east side, but I can't hear the question.
Councillor Yaneski's asking whether or not you're content with the sidewalk, and is that enough on that side, on your side?
I miss it all, Zig. Sorry, I'm deaf.
Okay, that's right. Well, I'll let it go. I'll talk to you afterwards.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
That's all our questions. Thank
Anybody
you.
else want to yell at me?
No one's here to yell at you, sir. Thank you. Our next delegation is Mr. Hodson. Welcome, Mr. Hodson.
Thank you. I've got a two-part presentation. One is really, I'm just going to read an email from a resident who was unable to attend today. Here's a copy of the email for the clerk. So her name is Lynn Forbes. She's a resident of Westgate Walk. To whom it may concern, we feel the proposed work to the above-mentioned streets is completely unnecessary. We have lived on Aberdeen Road and Westgate Walk for a combined 39 years and have never seen the need to add the proposed sidewalk. The charm of this area is the old Westmount feel and the fact that we have no sidewalk on Westgate Walk and along the bottom of the golf course, and we see this as a positive factor. There is beautiful landscaping and wonderful gates at the foot of Westgate Walk, which add to the history and heritage of the area. This area is meant to have a warm and welcoming feel, and that plays a huge part in the price of homes in this area, which in turn plays a huge part in the amount of taxes collected. There would also be an environmental impact, as there would need to be a number of trees removed and lawns covered in concrete. It has always been my understanding that as a city, we are trying to reduce our footprint. This would definitely be a step in the wrong direction. There's also a safety concern regarding people walking too close to the practice range on the golf course. We have had a window broken and many, many golf balls in our backyard, which we completely expected because we moved onto a golf course. But when you put on a sidewalk, you have no control over whether those people stay on the sidewalk. There are many children and young people using that practice green, and I would not want to get close behind any one of them. As a golfer, I know to stay away, but a huge percentage of the people using that sidewalk will not understand the risk of walking onto a course when people are swinging clubs, to say nothing of the number of practice balls that will walk off in people's pockets. I imagine it won't be long until the city and golf club are sued because someone has been injured. There is a very safe sidewalk currently on the other side of the street, which stretches the entire length of Aberdeen Road. At this point in time, with the current construction all over the city, I would say we as taxpayers would prefer not to spend money unnecessarily. That's the end of the email, so thank you. And I would just like to sort of bring it down to a common sense point of view. First off, in Ms. Gold's package on the last page, there's a quote from Barry Cronkite. There could be less sidewalks installed. If it's done rationally, this will allow us to identify those areas that are most in need based on pedestrian safety. And I would offer to you that not only is this sidewalk proposal not most in need, it goes completely against this quote in that it actually decreases public safety. So from a common sense point of view, that would be my point one. Point number two, as you've heard before, the survey has clearly indicated that the majority is against this sidewalk. I believe in democracy. You were kind enough to ask about who was in favor in the audience for against the sidewalk. So is anyone willing, was anyone feeling strong enough about the sidewalk to show up and talk? I believe it's a 0. So again, from a common sense point of view. Number 3, the LRT has more or less covered the city in concrete. So adding more concrete, I think, really from a practical point of view, nobody really wants. It's a unique neighborhood, old growth trees, golf course. The golf course situation was talked about having a fence. But what if you had an ugly army net, which would be a more cost-effective solution for the golf course? Right along Aberdeen, ugly army net. Just envision that in your head. So we have a sidewalk that no one wants, that we don't have the money to pay for. At the start of this meeting, all I heard was talking about money here, money there. Here's a way to save money, preserve a neighborhood, preserve the character, give the people what they want, and just keep everything as it is, which is quite beautiful, nice, and there's really no need at all for this. So thank you.
Thank you. We do have some questions for you.
Sure.
Councillor Yaneski.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Hodgson, for coming in, making your eloquent presentation. Appreciate that, and as well as that other resident who wasn't able to attend. Did you get a copy of the staff report that is before us today?
Only through Ms. Gold.
And that was just, what, over the last couple of days?
Yes.
Or whatever?
Yes.
Okay, so back to the typical question of Councillor Gazzola, what's your comments in terms of engagement with the property owners in the area? Has that been satisfactorily done?
Well, I'd have to say no, but more based on other people's comments as opposed to my direct involvement. So.
Okay. Are you going to the public open house tomorrow evening?
I'm going to try. It's my son's 12th birthday, so I may have a small conflict.
You can bring him along. Okay, no, because that's where I guess the staff will be making their presentation and showing the designs of reconstruction. Of course, this may be part of. So I just thought, you're invited to be.
I'll invite him too.
Okay, thank you very much.
We have no further questions. Thank you.
Maybe another delegation hasn't registered.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak on this item? You may come down. Please state your name.
Good afternoon. My name is Diane Schwan, and I do live on Aberdeen Road with my husband. We're retired. We do a tremendous amount of walking. In fact, we walked here today. We find no problem walking there whatsoever. I would like to propose to the people that have to make this decision. I'm from the old school where you list the pros and you list the cons. And I'm hoping the elevator will go to the top floor, and that from a taxpayer's point of view, I find this just a total waste of money. And I would think that there would be some other place that you might be able to spend it where people would actually want it spent. That's all. I'm just, as I said, a retired person that lives on the street and enjoys the neighborhood.
Thank you very much. We have a question for you. Councillor Yaneski.
And back to some of the questions I asked other delegations. Did you get a copy of the report at all?
The first that I heard was from Vicki.
Okay.
And I will be there tomorrow night. That's the first I've heard of that as well.
Okay. And you walked all the way from Aberdeen
yes,
to here?
We do a lot of walking, and I think it would be a shame. I think I don't need to go over all the negatives that the people have, but I'd like to know where the positives are, and I don't see too many.
Right. And how long have you lived in Aberdeen?
We've been there for 12 years.
12 years. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Questions of staff, if you wish to key in, please. Councillor Davey.
Thank you. A couple questions. First off, and forgive me if it's in the report, but I didn't see it, but what is the expected cost of this portion of the sidewalk? Aberdeen.
Through the chair, I don't have an exact number, but it's about $90 a meter for sidewalk construction, and it's 250 meters, so roughly about $22,000.
$22,000, okay. One of the items that jumped out at me in the presentation, Ms. Gohl picked up on the point about the 20 points allocated for the number of employees. Is it possible that that allocation was an error?
Mr. Cronkite.
Through you, Mr. Chair. We've confirmed with the major employer in the area in terms of what their numbers are currently. They have 485 employees, so very close to that 500 employee number. In addition to that, they laid off over 200 employees in 2013, 2014, so the facility itself can handle much more than the 500 employee minimum threshold. So I think it's still relative in terms of including that within the overall calculation.
Okay, but just again, from my understanding of how it works then, so is there rounding involved? Because does it have to be 500 plus, or is that, did staff round in this estimation?
Through the chair, we didn't round. We took into account that the location itself can handle more than 500 employees. So while it currently has less than 500, it can handle significantly more. So we want to make sure that we're addressing for the future rather than the present.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Gazzola.
Yeah, I wanted to know the cost, so I take it's $22,000. The other question I have is that this area is listed in our cultural landscape, right? It is listed. So has this issue gone before the Heritage Committee? Because this will change the cultural landscape. I'm gathering from the silence that
Mr. Allen?
No, it has not gone to Heritage Committee.
And I guess my next question is why not? Because this will change the landscape.
Through the chair, staff did talk to the heritage planner, Leon Van Sasson. What the advice was about the landscape study, the heritage landscape study, is that that is an inventory and an identification of heritage landscapes. It's not a study that identifies what you can and can't do within these landscapes.
Thank you. My sitting on the Heritage Committee, my understanding is that it is similar to a listed property, and when changes it's desired to change the area, that it needs to be reviewed by the Heritage Committee. So, thank you.
Okay. Councillor Uneski.
Yes, thank you. Questions to staff. I'm just wondering why the property owners who are identified in the circulation area in the staff report that nobody received a copy of the report, and I wonder why.
Mr.
Or
Carmichael.
why not?
Thank you. Through the chair, in response, our procedure when we're notifying residents of issues in the neighborhood that have a report going to council, the residents are provided a letter advising that this report is going to council, and they're also provided a link to where they can provide that report. So our process on that is we do notify the residents that there is availability of the report. If they're interested, they can either get it off the website or call the staff person in the report to get that report.
Now, those are all residents that are within your circulation area, but what about the residents who responded to, because you've got here, you know, somebody were in favor of and somebody were opposed, someone lived in nearby and were in favor or opposed, and even though they responded to the survey and the request for information and their position, they were not notified in terms of a copy of this report either?
Through the chair, they would have been provided the same letter advising them that this was being considered at committee today. And that same letter would have advised them to either go to our website for a copy of the report or contact staff for a copy of that report.
So basically what you're telling me is that regardless of who responds back, everybody just gets sort of a standard circulation letter saying this report is going to be considered on so-and-so date, and check the website for the staff report for further details. And that's standard throughout the city for all types of these issues.
I can only speak for transportation services, but that's our standard procedure, yes.
Yeah, that's the initial of my question with regards to transportation issues. The circulation area that was identified in the staff report, and then in the letter that was, or the presentation handed out, Mrs. Gall, and she's got a map on the back that shows a circular area of 400 meters, which is very different from the circulation area that this notice would have just gone to. How come they're two different, yet in the staff report it says all property owners within 400 meters?
Mr. Cronkite? Through you, Mr. Chair. When we're identifying where to circulate the initial survey, what we're looking at is a 400-meter radius, generally speaking, but we're also looking at a linear walking distance. So we want to make sure that the people that we're surveying are properly encapsulating the people that would, in fact, utilize the sidewalk in some way, shape, or fashion. So generally speaking, this area, with the exception of Waterloo, we didn't circulate residents within the city of Waterloo. Generally speaking, this area is representative of that. The one notable exception is Huntley Crescent, which we definitely missed in this case. But at the same time, it would be worth pointing out that most of the people that responded to the survey are opposed. I wouldn't expect or anticipate any different response should we change the circulation area.
Okay. We are going through a process here of the staff intent to put a sidewalk on the west side from Inverness all the way up to Forsyth Drive in Waterloo. So it's basically one more house in Waterloo because it's the corner house. Has Waterloo transportation staff done a similar circulation in terms of dealing with the sidewalk installation on Aberdeen for their portion of the road? Or does that homeowner on the corner have no idea what's going on other than what he'll find out, or they'll find out at the meeting tomorrow night?
Mr. Concrete? Through the chair, Waterloo, the city of Waterloo has a very different approach to their public engagement. To my knowledge, they have not, as of yet, reached out to any of their residents to indicate whether or not they would be installing sidewalks.
Interesting to note on that response, because when you look at the PIC notification for tomorrow night's meeting, and that it was identified in the paper, it was jointly done between the city of Waterloo and the city of Kitchener. So I assume that both staff and both municipalities were working hand in hand on both topics, one being the reconstruction and the other one being the sidewalk.
Mr. Reedman?
Through the chair, if you note on page 9-3, it states the City of Waterloo will complete sidewalk infill along their portion of the road to align with our sidewalk installation. So they have a small segment, so if this council chose not to install sidewalk along this portion, they wouldn't install sidewalk along that segment. They would only do it if this council approves our sidewalk portion.
Okay. Councillor Neske, can you, your time's up, can you key in after?
Sure.
If you have further questions. Councillor Marsh.
Thank you. Most of my questions have been answered. I just but I will have a few more here. So, during some of the presentations, which were excellent, by the way, and thank you for everybody for coming out to advocate for your viewpoints, I want to know why is it that Westmount Road has a section near Forsyth Drive with no sidewalk on one side?
Through the chair, Westmount Road is a regional roadway, so I am in no position to respond to that question. Sorry.
Okay, right. Fair enough. All right, and I want to know regarding this question about the sidewalk infill policy, where we do say that all affected citizens within 400 meters of the proposed sidewalk infill project will be circulated for comment. Do we typically also include businesses when they're within that 400-meter radius? And Mr. Cronkite, if you could just elaborate on your comments earlier, did you mean that we calculate 400 linear meters from the affected area, or is it a radius like is shown on the delegates map?
Mr. Cronkite? Through you, Mr. Chair. So there was two parts there. The first part, yes, we circulate all affected property owners, so businesses included. The second part, in terms of the linear measurement, it's more of a reflection of how we walk versus how the crow flies. So a radial distance is, you draw a circle on the map and you circle and anyone within that area. But practically speaking, 400 meters is a 5-minute walking distance. So what we do is we generally look at what's within a 5-minute walking distance of that sidewalk, and those are the people that we circulate.
Okay, sounds reasonable. I just wonder if maybe we need to tweak our policy to reflect our processes. I want to also just mention a kudos to our staff and our, they're working very hard to try and have a good public engagement process, and then that's why we have so many people coming to discuss this issue, because we've informed the citizens about our plans. Whereas Waterloo, I'm wondering why they do not inform the residents in the same way. But I won't comment further on that. I'll just say that I'm very pleased to see that Kitchener is making attempts, if not 100% always to the letter of the policy, making attempts to inform the residents of our plans.
Thank you. Councillor Etherington.
Through you, Mr. Chair, before we criticize the staff or continue to criticize staff, perhaps they could tell me, it's an obvious question, did this sidewalk infill policy follow a carefully crafted policy on sidewalks prepared by this council?
Mr. Cronkite, can you just stay keyed in, please?
Sure. Through you, Mr. Chair, yes, we followed the sidewalk infill policy, which was approved, I believe, in May of 2015.
Thank you. And was part of that policy drafted to remove the obvious ward politics from this kind of controversial issue over installing sidewalks? Was it to depolitize the whole subject?
In my opinion, the policy was approved based on rational technique versus politics. I won't speak for the council at the time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Yaneski.
Yes, thank you. Has there ever been a pedestrian count done on Aberdeen Road?
Through you, Mr. Chair, no, there has not been any pedestrian counts.
Any reason
conducted.
why not?
Typically speaking, when we're looking at the letter of the policy, we haven't indicated that pedestrian counts are required for the installation of sidewalks, but rather where we would expect pedestrians to walk.
So what was the last part or the phrase? Except where?
But rather where we would anticipate to see pedestrians rather than what is there presently.
So in busier areas of the city, wherever traffic issues are and pedestrian crossings, that where you probably do the most often, right? More likely.
I would suggest in response to that question, the policy basically dictates a desire to add sidewalks to both sides of every roadway within the city of Kitchener, with the mandate to increase walkability for all our citizens. The priority listing or the priority aspect of the policy reflects what you're asking about, Councillor Uneski, in that higher priorities based on demonstrated needs and demands in the area will dictate higher priorities. But the overall idea is to increase walkability around our community by having sidewalks everywhere.
Yeah, and I appreciate that comment, and I know where staff is coming from, and I'm clearly aware of council policy. But moving this further, the report talks about 50 points and fitting into priority 2. And I emailed staff asking how that was calculated and what factors were used as outlined in that attachment provided Mrs. Gold. And I've yet to hear from staff as to what the factors were. How was 50 calculated? I have no idea. I mean, I had to find out from the residents.
Is there a question in there?
Yes. How come my emails weren't responded to, asking for the breakdown on 50? I'm going to send it to the writer of the report.
Through you, Mr. Chair, in terms of your specific email, if it was missed by staff, I apologize. That's
not familiar with it personally.
So what were the factors to arrive at 50? I heard 485 employees that didn't quite make the 500 employee factor, and that would be 20 points right there. I don't know what other points were used.
Proximity to the Westmount Public School within 800 meters of Westmount Public. The completion of a link. So currently there are sidewalks on both sides of Aberdeen until you get to, I believe it's Inverness, and then there is only sidewalks on the east side. Similarly, though, when you get to Forsyth, there's also a sidewalk on, call it the south side of Forsyth. So this completes a link between those two pieces of sidewalk. So that's 5 points. And then the 20-point total that we're talking about is based on a major employer, and again, there's a little bit of interpretation there and professional judgment used in terms of analyzing that statistics.
Okay, thank you very much.
I have no motion on the table. Moved by Councillor Davey. What's that? Okay. Councillor Davey.
Thank you. I queued into comment, but I guess I can move the recommendation as well. What I will move is, I'll move the recommendation as it is, except I will remove Aberdeen Road from the sidewalk infill, and I would like to comment on as well.
Go ahead.
Mr. Chair, thank you. So I want to be clear on a few things. First off, I think there was some criticism of staff here, and it certainly didn't come from me. What staff did is they applied a policy that council put together. And what they did is they determined it may have been the minimum standard for priority 2, but in staff's assessment it was the minimum standard. What any policy will never comprehensively get is all of the extenuating circumstances that the residents brought forward. And in my opinion, they were very good extenuating circumstances. One thing I struggle with as a member of council is when we spend dollars, when we're spending them towards something that a majority of residents don't want, I struggle with that because there are so many issues and areas that we really need to spend money. So I don't think, in my opinion, in my estimation, I don't think that this sidewalk on Aberdeen is necessary. Obviously it is on the other road, and I would hope the other members of council would support that.
Councillor Uneski.
Yes, thank you very much. Staff have gone ahead and prepared a report in compliance with the council policy on sidewalks. They've done nothing wrong. They've done their job. And I'm not surprised on the recommendation the staff have provided because they're following what council directed them back in the policy back a number of years ago, or just a couple of years ago. However, I do question the calculation. And of course, they say that, and I'm just trying to do this all last minute because I'm only getting the information as I speak, as opposed to getting it back a while ago, that the 50-point factor, has not been complied with and doesn't meet the 50 points. Of course, using the employer's determination point system of 20, being 485 employees, and saying, well, it's in the area, so we'll calculate it. We'll calculate it in staff's favor as opposed to in the residents' favor. And that's what's happened here. So really the factor has really should be reduced, in my opinion. There are other reasons out there as well. The residents have pointed out quite clearly that they don't want it. There's a cultural landscape issue. Heritage has not even looked at it. I've sat on Heritage for years. I know where how they review the matter, and they'll be concerned as well. Drainage, I don't know much about it. It comes from the golf course. That'll have to be addressed, and maybe it'll impact more. I don't know. Snow removal issues has been commented on. Of course, the golf course has a concern in terms of the snow removal, now having to snow plow the sidewalk on Aberdeen. And of course, they have no sidewalk along Inverness at all for the whole flankage, if you look at the of their abutting lands. So it forces them to go out there and do it. If the sidewalk is put in, then you've got the issue of maybe the golf ball is going too far, and then you got to put it in this meshing or netting or whatever type to prevent it. It just will detract and look ugly in the neighborhood. And you've heard all the residents comment on the beautiful landscape and the quality of living in Westmount, probably the #1 spot to live in Kitchener, and it's got a historical value. It's very unique and very, very lovely. Very few people walk in that particular area. They do use the sidewalks. I hardly see many kids, and I haven't heard any school issues raised by anybody. I also have a whole bunch of emails that I have received over the last few days from people opposed to it. I'm sure council may have got them because I know they're addressed to me, but I assume they also addressed personally to everybody. I'm not sure, but they were most of them opposed to it as well. And then you look at the survey that's in the staff report, and it talks about 70% of the people are opposed, and then another 67 people who live in the area, and then 100% who are directly affected. I mean, like, what more has to be said? They're totally against it. So it's clear. I was going to make the motion that that Aberdeen be removed and not be supported, but Councillor Davey moved it ahead of me, which is fine. I appreciate that. And I've encouraged all of council not to support the installation of sidewalks on Aberdeen Road. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ineski. We have Councillor Gazzola.
Thank you. I want to thank the people of the area for coming in and voicing their opinions. I hope at the end of this exercise that we can show that the democratic process is alive, and when people participate, things can happen, things can change. I want to start off first dealing with with this whole infill process that we're going through. I didn't support it when it came to council, the way it went out, but I'm totally in support of it. I used to be the proud owner of 2 cars. Now I only have 1 car and a couple of bicycles, and I'm a real supporter of people getting out and walking and cycling, and I'm even known to cycle on sidewalks, but I do it with respectfully for people walking there. So I'm totally in favor of pedestrians and all of those nice things about that. But it seems that sometimes the pendulum swings too far. And I also want to point out that in bringing up some points here, I think it's fair for council to challenge staff. I don't think we're being critical. I think staff have always done a good job, but there's nothing wrong with challenging them, and I won't, I will go along with that. I also, in this particular situation, I want to compliment Councillor Davey for taking somewhat of a different stance than he has on other situations, somewhat similar to this, that there are times when common sense should prevail. And what bothered me about this whole thing as I was reading it yesterday, when we send out, we poll the neighborhood and we get almost 100% totally opposed. Why are we, if we're not going to listen to them, why are we even doing any exercise at all? So in this case, they've stated it, and I hope that the will of the people that live there will range. And I don't think that our policy, our sidewalk info policy is good. I think it does what it needs to do, but there are occasions when we don't need to go that route. We can save $22,000 here, and when I think about this morning, we sit and we listen to charitable organizations that are looking for a nickel and a dime, and we turn them away, and here we have opportunities to save dollars that can be put to much better use, and we have a number of these over the years. So I'm pleased with where I hope this is going. I'm glad that the two projects have been separated, and I would ask on this one that we have a recorded vote at the end of this debate. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gazzola. Councillor Fernandez.
Thanks. At the risk of repeating what we've been hearing all along, I'll make a couple of quick comments. Our sidewalk infill policy was set by staff to try and depoliticize the whole process. But that's never going to happen, because the democratic process means that we need to hear from the residents who live in the area, who are directly impacted by the policy. And that's why the policy has an out. It says right in here that an exemption may only be authorized by council should staff not be able to reasonably mitigate any one or more of the following. And the 4 different options are listed there, and I would say that this situation would cover all 3 of the 4. So negatively impact the character of the neighborhood, significant site impacts, and substantial loss of healthy mature trees of non-invasive species. The 4th one relates to the city's annual operating budget and mitigating winter maintenance. I don't see that that's going to actually affect the city. It will definitely affect the residents. So based on how we've set the policy and how we've created the exemptions, the 3 out of the 4 we cannot mitigate. We definitely should be listening to the residents and following our policy that staff created an out for themselves and for us, and turn down this sidewalk on Aberdeen at this time. I think it's really important that that democratic process be heard and understood.
Thank you. Councillor Etherington.
Through you, Mr. Chair. There's going to be considerable more information and debate at the community meeting tomorrow night. I would suggest that this be deferred until December 12th. That's only a week away at our council meeting, so that everyone can get together and come up with some other solution to this problem. I would also say, so that's a notice for deferral. If we scrap this Aberdeen proposal, I would suggest, in all fairness, that we review and change our sidewalk policy.
Okay, I will take the deferral, but I will allow questions until then. Councillor Marsh, comments?
Yeah, just actually a quick question, if I may.
Go ahead.
It's just a question of staff. A reminder of priority. Oh, I'm looking here. Priority 3. Because this sidewalk does officially, if we interpret the sidewalk info policy as this having under as the major employer having under 500 employees, which it currently does, then what would be the rationale for sidewalk on both sides?
Mr. Cronkite? Through you, Mr. Chair. Regardless of the priority, the way the policy is written, then unless we cannot mitigate outstanding measures, we would be looking to install sidewalks on both sides, regardless of priority.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we have no further questions, comments. I will make, you won't.
Well, are we going to be talking about deferral? Or do you accept that as a direction, or is it just sort of a statement comment?
We're going to vote on it, yeah.
Okay, that's what I know. Okay. So I have comments on deferral.
Okay. Councillor Yaneski?
Okay, thank you. If we're going to be voting on the issue of the deferral, as Councillor Etherington has stated, to wait for the outcome of tomorrow's discussion. Well, tomorrow's discussion basically pertains to the redevelopment and reconstruction whole process of Aberdeen. I mean, you're going to be talking about all the underground infrastructures, utility installations, what's going to happen with the road of the surfacing. Will it be widened or narrowed or kept the same? Those will be the issues. The sidewalk issue will not really be discussed tomorrow. The whole purpose, if you really look at the statement in the notification tomorrow, will be what's decided today, not the decision that's going to be happening tomorrow. There's not going to be no decision tomorrow made at this meeting. And maybe Steve Allen could maybe comment on that as well, because I understand he'll probably be there tomorrow to address this. They'll be looking for feedback and input from residents as to how they feel. But the main component of the issue of sidewalk is being dealt with here today, not tomorrow. So I would recommend that the request for a deferral be turned down and that we move forward with the recommendation of not including Aberdeen. So that's my comments.
Councillor Gazzola?
Yeah, I want to speak along the same lines. I'm not in favor of deferral. The deferral really accomplishes nothing. If this is dealt with right now and it passes, it still has to be ratified by council next week, and so proponents and opponents still have an opportunity to speak to the issue. But at least if we do take a vote now, people can see where the council stands and prepare their offense or defense based on that. Deferring it just really shuts down discussion and really, to my way, isn't very democratic. So I would ask council to join in defeating the deferral motion.
Okay, thank you. Yes, got that. Councillor Etherington.
Just in response to that, through you, Mr. Chair, I would say that the whole point of this meeting, including sidewalks, is to provide much more information where up until now there's been an absence of that information. So I would say there is a point to waiting until that meeting is held, and that's the whole point of my motion to defer.
Okay. I'll make my comments. First of all, I just want to thank all the residents for coming in and stating your case. I think you did make some valid points. And secondly, I want to thank staff. I think staff have done a commendable job. I think they've done exactly what they've been told to do with regards to our policy, and they gave their opinion based on that policy. And it is up to council to make the decisions to whether to agree with the policy or disagree with the policy. And I think the policy was designed to again alleviate some of the political sizing of some of the issues, and in particular, like one of the instances was Glasgow Road, where we didn't put a sidewalk. In my opinion, I think we goofed on that one, and I think this is the one that we should take the right action right now and not go ahead with the sidewalk, because if it didn't have the sidewalk on the other side, I would have been more leaning towards supporting it. But since there is a sidewalk on the other side, I don't see the necessity to further enhance the walkability of the neighborhood. Considering when I'm looking at the satellite map and seeing where the other businesses, I can't see why I can't see too many people walking any differently than that to go to that employment. So, with that, we'll take a note on we'll vote on the deferral. Deferrals. You want a recorded vote on the deferral? Okay. Recorded vote on the deferral. All those in favor? Opposed? The deferral is defeated. On the motion proposed by Councillor Davey that Aberdeen be removed and the remaining, the other road, which is the other road? Sorry, I'm looking at the wrong one. Keel Street be adopted. Councillor Unesky.
Okay, I know we've been dealing with the last hour with Aberdeen. Is there anybody from Keel Street here in terms of issues? I mean, we're going to now be recommending approval of Keel as well, you're saying, and I have no concerns on it, but I just didn't know whether...
Well, no residents from Keel applied to be a delegation, so there is no concern with regards to that.
Okay, so the motion before...
The motion is to deal, we're going to deal with this separately. We're going to deal with item on Aberdeen, and then the other one as...
Okay, so the motion reads that Aberdeen not be included.
That's right.
Okay, so if you don't want it, you
the
vote
other
in
one,
favor.
Keel's included. We'll do that separately. Do it. Okay. One vote. Sounds good. Be separated? Okay, it'll be separate then.
So if you're voting for deletion of Aberdeen, you're voting in favor or against?
Okay. So the motion
how's that motion worded?
The motion on the floor is no action on Aberdeen and the recommendation for Keel, but right now the motion is no action for this one. So if you're in favor of
no action,
you vote yes.
Okay.
All those in favor? Opposed? Okay. That's carried. No action on Aberdeen. And the remaining of the report? Recorded vote on that one? Okay. Not recorded vote. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you. All right, that concludes item number 9. We're looking at item number 10.
Don't worry about it.
Dealing with Zeller Drive bike lane implementation. And again, just to make a note, Clause 2 of the staff recommendation needs an amendment to include northwest as a direction rather than just west due to the curvature of the road. And we have delegations, yes. We have 3 delegations registered. And just to remind delegations, you have 5 minutes pursuant to council's policy to speak your concerns. And the first delegation up is Mr. Kronk.
Start any time?
You're welcome. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. I want to speak in opposition to this bike lane. It's a residential street. We have schools on both ends. I guess it would be the west side, Lackner Woods School. We have a lot of pedestrian traffic. On the other side, on Pebble Creek, actually, is a school. There's I think it's St. John Paul. So we do have a lot of pedestrian traffic on our street. The issue that I've brought out for the past 8 years has not been the need for bike lanes. It's been for traffic calming. And I know there's a debate over what that should look like. And I know emergency vehicles and different operations don't approve of speed bumps. But that's probably the most effective way to slow traffic down on our street. Between that Lackner Woods School till basically Old Zeller, right in front of my house, we probably see speeds in excess of 80 kilometers an hour on a regular basis. It's dangerous to check the mail across the street. I always worry about kids. We did have a bike lane for a brief period that was actually painted. The signs have never come down. It was installed when I think we were the 4th resident in the neighborhood. There was no houses. Zeller didn't even continue on to Pebble Creek at that point. And the only reason that we found out about it is because my son got a parking ticket in front of my house one day. I immediately called down and asked, why do we have a 2-block bike lane in a neighborhood that isn't even full yet? And I never got a good response other than the fact that, don't I care about cyclists? And the answer to that is yes, I do. I think there's definitely a need for cycling lanes in this city, but I think they're needed in Lackner, Fairway, Ottawa, these major arteries that there is a concern to keep separation between vehicles and bikes. When you're in a residential area, if we slow down traffic, then we could all share the road and it wouldn't impact parking, which is the biggest issue in our street. We've never enjoyed parking on our side of the street. Up in the older part of Zeller, where it's narrower, they have. You can see the traffic calming effect of just having vehicles on the road up at that end. They definitely slow down at that end. They probably still go too fast if you ask the residents up there. But it's still an issue. Now that we've got the new bridge open up on Fairway, our street is a thoroughfare because of the congestion down at Lackner and Fairway. So we've become a detour, or it's not even a detour, it's just become a freeway to get over to Kossuth Road and the airport. So I don't think bicycle lanes are going to solve the problem. I've heard the argument that they do have a calming effect, and I think if anyone just parked on Lackner for any length of time and watched if those cycling lanes have a calming effect. They don't. Most of the time there's vehicles in them. They're driving because they don't corner. I think you park vehicles, lines painted on the road, for one thing, to keep people within lanes, are definitely a lot more effective than having cycling lanes. Now, I'm not saying that, once again, because I'm opposed to cyclists, but I think they have a place, but they have a place where the traffic warrants that they are needed. In a residential area, if we slow everybody down, it's just not necessary. But it seems to me that there's this thing that I found out about in April about the cycling master plan, I think is what it was called. And that's the first time I'd ever heard of it. And I think sometimes staff and council are more concerned about a master plan than they are about concerned about the residents and what they want. I'm really glad to see the decision that was just made, because that means that you do listen to residents. With the exception of, I think, 3 individuals, every person we've talked to on our street, and between some neighbors, unfortunately it wasn't me, my wife was, there was nobody in favor of this that we spoke to. And we went all the way up and down Zeller Drive. Like I say, I think if we can eliminate congestion, and I guess it's a regional road, so it's probably not this council's decision to do it, but if we can eliminate the congestion on Fairway and Lackner to make that more accessible to the new bridge, they would avoid our neighborhood, because it would just make some sense. So that's my opposition to the whole thing. I think it's more of a traffic calming issue, and that's what I really want to see down Zeller.
Thank you for your presentation. We do have some questions for you.
Okay.
Councillor Schneider.
Thank you, Chair Ioannidis. So traffic calming is your main concern?
Yes.
Okay.
And parking, but traffic calming number 1, parking number 2.
Okay. It's just, I understand the traffic issues, and I've been talking with the region of Waterloo because there will be improvements made to Fairway Road. They're not imminent, but they are planned, which I pray helps, the route that people are taking at Ottawa, for Fairway and Lackner. Traffic calming, though, are you aware that doing the traffic calming can actually mean more parking losses than just bike lanes?
Well, I think if we looked at allowing parking on both sides of the road, I think it would still be a net gain of parking. And as far as I'm concerned, you could put a speed bump right in front of my house. I'd love to see that. So I don't know. I haven't done the actual study or looked at any study that would dictate how many would be lost or gained. But I wouldn't be opposed. Depends what the traffic calming looks like. If you're going to put those big curbs out into the road to narrow it, I think those probably are a lot less effective. Heritage Drive would be a good example of that. It becomes a challenge to young drivers who think they're race car drivers, to try to see how fast they can go through that. I think probably the most effective way to do it. The road on Freeport, and I know it's probably not a city road, but that's a good example of how that works. It's slowed down in Freeport. It slowed the traffic down immensely because they put those, not the really nasty bumps, but the ones you can hit really nicely at about 35 kilometers an hour.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Councillor Gazzola?
Yeah, you live on Zeller Drive now?
I live right on Zeller, yeah.
Yeah, what part of Zeller do you live on?
377. So I'm Old Zeller basically runs right into my front yard.
Oh, okay. So I see that. Yeah, can you tell me currently what kind of cycling traffic is there on the road now? Is there a lot? Is there any?
Most of it's on the sidewalk. To be honest with you, because of the traffic on the road. Very little. I think with Mr. Cronkite's study, I think they average about 18 a day.
Okay.
Are
right? There sidewalks on both sides of the road?
There's sidewalks on both sides, yes.
Right from one end to the other?
There is now.
Yeah.
Now that the construction's done, the sidewalks are complete all the way. Well, no, stretch at the end of our street, if we keep going to the west, there's still one lot that needs to be developed, so the sidewalk has to be installed there. But there's a pretty well-worn path.
Okay, but there's from what you can see, there isn't a great deal of cycling traffic there now.
No.
Okay, thank you.
We have no further questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
So, Mr. Kronk. Our next delegation, Ms. Gassler.
Thank you for hearing me. I'm Wilma Gassler of 75 Zeller Drive. I've lived there since 2010 in April. The people I went to see and knocked on each and every door, it was me. What I heard from every house is we do not want cycling lanes. We have nothing against cycling. It's great, but not on our road. Our road is different from other roads. There is Abbeydale. Put a bike lane there. Wonderful. It takes you out to the back to the Walter Bean Road, and you can go anywhere from there. Our road is different. Half the road, when it first was built, it's very narrow. We have a left-hand turn, and that doesn't leave too much on the side for anything else but a car. I think even buses would have a problem with having a bike lane there. But you're going to allow us to just have, called shales or whatever. Anyway, what I'm saying, the planning department, when they first put those houses in, that was over 20-something years ago, these first houses went up. They had no foresight. Oh, it is a great idea. The developer wanted more houses, squeeze more houses in. I know that's how it goes, right? But what they didn't have any foresight, there's all that land by the river to be developed. There's going to be a lot more houses going up. You need to see ahead and plan your roads accordingly. It's a given. You know that it's going to get developed. And then what I'm seeing is when we went to them, first of all, we got a letter in September 7, 2012, where they took a survey of the parking. They wanted to take away the parking on our half, the narrow half of the street. Like our street is like two different streets that are stuck together. Half is narrow, the other half is wider. It is not fair to say something to one and do something else for the other. We should be treated equally. We pay taxes equally. Therefore, what I'm saying, by taking away our parking, what happens to the people that park in front of my house every morning? They've changed the rules. There's little kids, 4-year-olds. Are you going to let them walk to school? You definitely would drive them, right? Where will they park? There was no foresight when you had the school built. There's no drop-off for parents. You know, those things are things that planners should consider. That's why they're called planners. And all these people say they need parking. So at the meeting on the 5th of April, we were informed of all this. We were so upset. I'm sure Dave went home with a headache because we were screaming and yelling loud enough. But then it got pushed out. From that day, April, I got an email in May because I emailed them. I had another list attached, what I thought. And, we'll have a meeting in June. Well, June got pushed out. Didn't hear anything about a meeting, July or August. August 14th, I got an email from Dave saying, you're talking about meetings in September under a canopy. Well, you know that September can be pretty mean sometimes. And you know how we got informed on that? There was, listen to this, a huge big sign perfectly planted, right by the light at Lackner and Zeller. I make my left-hand turn. I see a sign, but I gotta look at the road to drive, right? So whoever read that sign? And the other sign was at Old Zeller Drive. Again, you're making a left-hand turn and you see a sign. Do you pay attention? No. But they hand-delivered a letter. Do you want to hear a joke? We got our letter delivered into the mailbox beside my front door. All I get in that mailbox is the flyers. I never even looked in that mailbox. I went down to my mailbox. A lady knocked on my door. Did you see the letter? I didn't get a letter. Then I looked again. I ran my finger in. I found the letter in my mailbox beside my front door. Who expects a letter there? I wonder how many didn't get that letter in time. 2-3 days notice, right? The letter was dated the 20th of September. The meeting was the 24th. Lots of time, lots of notice time, right? Well, it turned out there was a few people that actually did come. And as you go into these meetings, they make you sign in. But nobody got a package, like that package with all the information. Why wasn't that attached to the letter that you got sent? People might have taken more notice. And the first meeting in April was way over on Borden. That's a long way from us. Parents are busy with kids, right? And every driveway, by the way, goes out onto Zeller. Try backing out of my driveway. I'm in the bend, and there's the hill. I look down, nothing. I started backing down because I looked, there was nothing. As soon as my tail end is out, there comes another car. Try getting out of my driveway at rush hour. It is amazing. We've been after these guys. We need something to slow down the traffic. It's unreal how fast they come over that hill. It hasn't been addressed, but now I really need to talk to you about something else. How can you approve a master cycling plan and not one soul on our street was aware of it? And that happened August 10th. I lived there since April 10th. I never got anything. So how do you pass something like that? It's something important. You feel it's important. I feel it's important too, cycling. but not at our expense on our road. There's a handful. And you know when they come in the summertime, after supper, they're out with their family, that there isn't that much traffic. It's not rush hour. But you want to put a lane in. People are worried about parking. Parking is important. People have teenagers. We have one on the narrow side down the road from us. I'm sorry I'm cutting over the time, but you need to hear this. That man is a biker. I know he is. And I told him, would you sign? No, I'm a biker. And I go, yeah, but we're losing all our parking. He says, give me a pen. And he signed my petition. And that is a real cycler.
Okay.
I'm sorry, but there's one more item I need to tell you.
Okay.
This screw-up that was done on the roundabout, you know, when you come over the bridge, right? You see the roundabout, it says Zeller Drive. Well, I'll have you know, take a look on the map where Zeller Drive goes. It comes from Lackner, goes around, makes a turn by Old Zeller Road, and it goes down to Pebble Creek. That's where we stop. We don't go near that roundabout. It is Old Zeller Road that goes straight down to the roundabout. What a screw-up. Will anybody do any homework when they designed that? Where was the planning department at that point?
Oh.
So I hope, I'm sorry, but that was a screw-up. And it even cost us money because some of these houses had to change their numbers.
Ms. Gassler, thank you. We have a few questions for you.
Okay.
Okay, Councillor Fernandez.
Yeah, thank you very much for your presentation and your passion about your street. Can you tell me how many cars can park in your driveway and in your garage?
Listen, I don't need the parking. I'm doing this for my neighbor. This is why I started. The next day after that meeting, when we were told we wouldn't have parking, the people across have 4 adult kids and an adopted one. They all come with their babies to grandma's house every second week for...
Okay, but on a regular basis, the majority of the houses on your street, how many cars can they fit in the garages and the driveway?
People that have an empty garage, they park in the garage. So I have 2 extra spaces in the boulevard I can park on. But a lot of people, they have teenagers and they need the extra car space, right?
That's fine. I just needed to understand that. I don't want to... I have a couple of other questions and I'm going to run out of time.
My concern is the children. These little guys, where are they supposed to drop these kids off?
So that's my next question. Are you aware that it's the school board that makes the decisions on whether there is a drive-through on their school and not the city?
But you have to get together, and who does the final approval? I believe it's Kitchener. Is it not?
When it comes to a drive-through on a school property, it's the principal of the school that makes that decision.
By the way, I even did notify the public school board that we're having this problem, and she said she would bring it up and forward it on to the right person.
Okay, you're correct that that's the responsibility of the school.
This is all planning. I'm saying this is planning.
Well,
what are you going to tell these parents? Where do they park if you take?
Okay, Mrs. Gassler, we're getting beyond the questions.
Now,
please,
can
we move on, please?
I think you need to look at your staff report because we were told at the last meeting the parking was on one side and this side didn't get it. Now they were going to move it from there to there. What are you doing? Agitizing the people? One against the other? This is unreal.
That's okay. Councillor Gazzola?
Yeah, I have 2 quick...
we still have some further questions for you.
Questions.
I'm so upset, sorry.
No, excuse me. Where do you live on Zeller Drive?
75, and I'm right in the bend, and it goes up the hill and down the hill towards the school.
Yeah, near Old Zeller Drive?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. The other question, you said you went around and
each and every one I got.
How many?
I have 139 signature on that petition.
In favor of what you want?
Yes.
Yeah.
No bike lanes, but parking.
Okay, but and is that the total number? Were there any And the other way?
Well, they passed the original
It's being passed around.
petition.
Okay.
I never got it back. This is
So,
only a copy.
okay, so you did 139. How many would there be on the whole
I
street?
couldn't go to the ones that were for sale. A couple of houses were for rented and they wouldn't sign. I missed a few. I went back a few times. I gave up on a few. But on the whole, and of all these houses I went to, there was 5. I don't think I need my other hand. That said to me, we're bikers. How did it get onto it in the first place is what I really like to know. Because they must have just took somebody's advice, oh yeah, I picked that one. They didn't do any homework on it. And you know, they contradict. In December 12th, they said if they took 1 lane of parking away, it would mean the speed would increase. In your staff report, it's exactly the opposite. So your contradiction. So maybe somebody should really look into it.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We don't have any further questions. Next delegation is Mr. Bowes. Councillor Singh?
Just sometimes in the heat of it, we forget. Just a reminder for all of us, for the benefit of our delegates' privacy, it's not proper for us to ask where they exactly live, their actual home address. So. Yeah, I'm just saying sometimes we don't want them to, just for their benefit, that's all. So. Just for their benefit. I'm not saying that you did anything wrong, Councillor Gazzola.
Good afternoon.
We're trying to get that raised for you.
Oh, thank you.
It's in the actual
Is it as high as it? Good. This doesn't do it, does it? It's all right.
Go
This
ahead.
is the story of my life. So. Good afternoon. My name is Mike Bose. I am the chair of the Kitchener Cycling and Trails Advisory Committee. And with me today are the future chairs of the 2031 and 2034 Kitchener Cycling and Hoverboard Advisory Committees. Our committee, back in April, was presented the situation on Zeller Drive. And what we were told was that based on the traffic volumes and the speeds that road saw under the province's own guidelines in the Ontario Traffic Manual, that it merited some form of separated bike lane infrastructure. Now, we are also told that for the one section, I believe it's on the west side, that there wasn't enough room to maintain any of the existing parking and include cycling infrastructure. But on the east side, there already had been bike lanes, but those had been neglected. And through that neglect, people had forgotten that bike lanes were there. And so this particular measure was intended to restore those bike lanes. And as I understand the staff recommendation before you today, they're recommending sharrows along Zeller Drive on the portion where bike lanes can't be accommodated. Our committee passed a resolution recommending that the portion that had formerly had bike lanes have those bike lanes return. A number of committee members expressed concern about the effectiveness of sharrows. There's sort of mixed feelings. Some people feel that they are mostly just useful as wayfinding, as saying this is some place the city considers a cycling route, but they don't. Oh, you want to climb up too? All right.
Okay, a shovel.
Thank you. Where was I? The sharrows don't actually provide any safety benefit. In fact, in some cities, research has suggested they may actually have a negative impact on safety. And others just think that maybe they have this wayfinding property, but some cycling route signs will be of use. So I apologize again for the disturbances, but these guys are really excited about bike lanes and hoverboards. And so, I find it really challenging when we are given this dichotomy between parking and bike lanes. In this case, we are presented as this being somewhat of a compromise. We're not wanting bike lanes where we feel they'll be they would be very difficult and difficult imposition, but to maintain parking on one side of the street and remove it from the other and maintain bike lanes. We've seen other streets like East Avenue where that has worked really well. There's been a 10-kilometer-an-hour reduction in speed limits. I think we have a good compromise here today. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Bowes. We do have several questions for you. Councillor Etherington.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Bowes, you realize you're competing with a councillor over here, huh? Huh? You got your hands full. Do you go up and down at night like that? No, I'm just kidding.
Can you they're reasonably good sleepers. This one gets up around 3, but I have to thank Councillor Galloway-Seelock for paving the way for me to bring these guys here.
No, it's great. Are you suggesting we not approve Sharrows?
I would say our committee didn't pass any resolution on that matter. What we did say was we prefer the cycling route to remain on Ziller Drive. There were some recommendations to divert it around, but those would have probably also entailed Sharrows at the same time. But what I would say is that councillors and staff should be aware of what they're actually getting when they put in Sharrows. So it's not that we're actually contributing to cycling infrastructure so much as marking a place where we're encouraging people to bike.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Councillor Davey?
Oh, sorry. I was just saying mine's a question of staff.
Oh, okay. Councillor Fernandez?
Hi, Mike. My question was similar to that about the Sharrows. If we didn't do the Sharrows, is there something else that you would like to see to identify that there are continuation of bike lanes from one portion of Zeller Drive to another?
I believe Ontario Traffic Manual Book 18 has designs for cycling routes. So as a designated cycling route or what might be considered a bicycle-friendly street, if there is parking on both sides on that section of the street, as I understand it, and the street is narrower than it is on the other side, so as to provide a bit more traffic calming, then I think, I understand the speeds are high and the volumes are high, but I'm a bit more comfortable with that than saying nothing at all.
Okay. Thank you, Mike.
Councillor Marsh?
Question of staff.
Question of staff. McKeon back in, please. Councillor Schneider?
Thank you, Chair Ioannidis. Mike, thank you so much for coming in and bringing the children in. I know it's quite a lot to ask to give in like this. When we have a cycling master plan that blankets the city, and it comes down to individual streets, and we want to, as much as possible, balance the needs of the cycling master plan and the wishes of those that reside on the street. And this plan has changed significantly from its first inception. Are you, as a cyclist, happy or okay with the compromises in here? Is this enough for you as a cyclist?
To be honest, I think personally, I think it's a bit weak tea. But, sometimes compromises are necessary to get things to happen, culture to change, and this is one of the past delegations mentioned, this is a street with 2 schools, residential area. This is a place where kids need to be able to feel safe biking to school. We've seen a huge decline in the last couple decades in kids biking to school, And I know our school boards are interested, and the regions and the cities are working together with them to try and come up with programs to get kids to bike to school. But we've got to have, not lay out the red carpet, but lay out the bike lanes for them to help bring them in there. The current cycling master plan, as I understand it, was approved in 2012, and so it may be coming up for review in the next 1 or 2 years, as I understand it. Staff can correct me on that. The idea of the priority cycling network in there is to sort of cover the city in something of a grid, so that most people have reasonable access to cycling infrastructure within a reasonable distance. And I think there's room for tweaks and there's room for improvements, but ultimately we need to keep the structure, the general concept of having a minimum grid that connects every part of the city to every other part of the city intact.
Okay. Just want to be sure that we're able to keep balance between the needs of the residents and the master plan.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Brose, thanks. That's all we have for you. Questions of staff? Councillor Davey.
Thank you. I just have one question. The Sharrows themselves, are those the more expensive plasticky green ones, or is it just paint? And I guess side question, if the Sharrows were removed, how would that affect the $20,000 budget for this?
Through the chair, we're not intending to use the green Sharrows that you see in the downtown streets. We're talking about just the purely white Sharrows you've seen in other applications. We do propose to use the thermoplast because, frankly, it's a cheaper product over time than paint. Its durability allows us to only replace it every 7 to 10 years as opposed to every year. So the question of cost would be minimal. I don't have the exact amount, but the cost of the Sharrows through that section of Zeller would probably be just a few $100s of the overall estimated cost.
Let's not waste any more time. Thank you.
Councillor Schneider.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair.
Question, when it comes to bike lane implementation, this street has been identified as one in need of traffic calming. Have there been situations before where bike lanes were not implemented first and we went straight to traffic calming?
Through the chair, since the cycling master plan has been in place, which was approved in 2010, when we establish the locations that we recommend to you folks for approval each year for a traffic calming review, we do take a look at the cycling master plan. And thus far, to this point in time, our procedure on that would be to go through the implementation of the cycling infrastructure before going to the traffic calming review. The thinking there being is, and each case is unique and different, but generally speaking, implementing cycling lanes and further cleaning up the markings on roadways can have traffic calming benefits on its own. So we want to ensure before we go into a traffic calming plan that the cycling infrastructure will work as well.
Okay. Now, loss of parking has come up as an issue. You've adjusted this design and 74 parking spots remain. If traffic calming was added on top of this or instead of this, would you think there'd be the same amount of parking spots lost? Could there be less? Could there be more?
Through the chair, excellent question. One I don't have a confident answer for, in that I can't predict what would happen, but each one's unique and different as far as each one of the traffic calming reviews, so we don't know exactly what measures might come out of it. What we're proposing today for implementing the cycling infrastructure will result in a loss of parking on one side of the road for approximately half of the roadway, I would suggest, or maybe more. About a quarter of the roadway. So I would, it's impossible for me to say what traffic calming plan might go in there, but I don't think the impacts would be much different.
Okay, and one of the points brought up by one of the delegations was the possibility of a yellow center line on the street. Is this something that could be considered or is possible?
Through the chair, absolutely. We'd be more than happy to consider that. We typically, on our residential roadways, don't mark the center line, but when we get into situations where we've got cycling infrastructure or parking, and it's a challenge, then quite often we have added center lines just to better define for the traffic on the roadway.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Gazzola?
Yeah, can you tell me, when is this road due for a traffic calming study? Or has it been done, or?
Through the chair, our intent is to complete this cycling infrastructure review, and from that, determine what impacts the cycling infrastructure may have had on traffic conditions, and then initiate the traffic calming review thereafter.
Okay, so there's no, so when do you expect that might occur? Can you give me a year?
I would suggest in the next year or two.
Okay, so basically what you're doing here is really relating to the cycling master plan.
That's correct.
Do you have any indication of the number of cyclists on that road now?
We don't have any studies that would tell you that, no.
You have no idea?
No.
You have no. Oh, that's fine.
I'm sorry, I don't know.
Somewhere in the report I read, and I think it was also referred to, that what they wanted to do, that there were cycling lanes before, and they went into disrepair or something, and they just want to get them back. Is that the case? Was there a cycling laneways on the whole road, or?
Through the chair, the cycling lanes were earmarked as a recommendation from the original subdivision plan, and so they were put in at that time.
But they were on the paved road?
Correct.
And so what's happened to them? The paint wore out, is that it?
My understanding is that they have not been maintained and they have just faded out, yes.
So was that considered as an alternative, just to restore and repaint the existing bike lanes?
Through the chair, the challenge to that would be our uniform traffic bylaw does not permit parking within a bike lane. So theoretically, through a general provision, vehicles parked over a marked bike lane can get ticketed. Our practice so far on that has been to sign any locations where there's bike lanes with no parking signs as well. So were we to maintain what was in place currently, there'd be absolutely no parking permitted on the roadway.
Yeah, that sounds confusing. In other words, you're saying that we could have gone up there now and did all sorts of ticketing, because it would have been a bicycle lane, but people were parked on it. Yeah. Okay, do we do follow-ups on this sort of thing? I know, I'm not sure if it was last year or the year before, was it on West Heights or that area over there that there was, we went through this process. Do we do a follow-up after a year or so to see what's happening?
Through the chair, absolutely, yes. Any traffic calming review implementation or any cycling infrastructure implementation, we'll follow it up the following year to measure the before and after.
Yeah, so we can expect one on, you know what I mentioned, right? West Heights, is that right?
Correct.
Yeah. So when will that be coming back to council? I'm just curious to see, that was one of the first ones, just to see what the effect of these changes are.
I would suggest in the year 2017 we'll report back to council on how West Heights has developed.
Okay, now if this goes forward, when do you expect some kind of report to come back to council as to the success or not success of this particular change?
Through the chair, I would suggest, depending on how obviously the approvals for this go, we would implement the measures this year. At some point through the year, I can't dictate or determine that at this point, and typically follow up with the after studies next year. So maybe, or next year being 2018. So sometime later in 2018 is when we determine how and what we proceed with traffic calming.
So when you say this year, you'll put
2017.
Yeah, put the change in what? Not until springtime.
That's correct.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Councillor Marsh.
Thank you, Chair Ioannidis. So I, in follow-up to Councillor Gazzola's question about follow-up, I actually have received recently a follow-up email from a resident of Union Street. And in some ways, this question here on Zeller Drive does remind me of Union Street, where we did have a fair bit of vocal opposition to the what we called, to the bike lanes that we installed. And here now we have, I just want to read the follow-up part of this email. It has been several months since the bike lanes have been installed on Union Street, and from what I can see, it is working very well. There was an immediate change to the average speed of drivers, which seems to have continued, despite a small number of people who still go far too fast. After speaking to many neighbors, I have not heard any negative opinions, which is rather surprising. One person commented that he has never seen so many bicycles on Union Street. Of the people who were very vocal in their opposition to this, I have not heard one word of complaint since the lines were painted. And he goes on to say, in the past, when I slowed down to turn into my driveway, people often tried to pass me on the right, even though it was not really safe to do so, and that no longer happens. Also, the slower speeds and narrower traffic lanes make it much easier for backing onto Union from my driveway. And as a pedestrian, I find crossing the street to be much safer. So, I can appreciate residents' resistance to change and the concerns about the need for parking, but I do think that increasing our safe cycling infrastructure for residential streets, especially where there are two schools, is really a must. I am not exactly thrilled with the Sharrows either, but it is a good compromise because of the narrowness of that stretch. And so I would like to move the motion to move the recommendation of staff.
All right, we're in the comment modes now. Councillor Fernandez.
I'll just be really brief, and especially in light of Councillor Marsh's comments. That was absolutely, the gallery was filled, and people were really, really against the bike lanes and removal of some other parking areas. It is a really true success story. I've driven down Zeller Drive a number of times. I've got a family member that lives on that street, and the speeds are fast. And if we can do anything to do that, to improve that, by having bike lanes, I think we need to do that. Just for a piece of information for one of our delegations, the Cycling Master Plan was passed in 2010. It's on the books, it's on the website, if anybody wanted to look at it. It was not something that was passed as with no public input. The Cycling Advisory Committee is made up of all volunteers who worked for a number of years to put that forward and put it together. So that's another piece of information. And I think it's also important to note that it's the school boards who make decisions around drive-throughs onto their school property. It is parking around schools is an ongoing issue, and I would love to see more children cycling to school because I think it's safer and it gets them out of the cars and gets rid of all the traffic congestion around our schools. I look forward to seeing this pass today.
We have no further. Councillor Schneider.
Thank you, Chair Ioannidis. This has been a big issue for the residents of Zeller Drive. This, I feel, it's different than what we were discussing with the sidewalk issue on Aberdeen Road. There was much more in play there. The golf course, the trees that were at risk, fire hydrants being relocated, installation of retaining walls. With the bike lanes, the issues of speed may be helped. And it's something to be aware of. The province is going to consider legislation that will allow municipalities the use of speed safety cameras, which will have an effect on speeding. So that can definitely help the situation here. There's a possibility with reduced size lanes, that Zeller Drive will not be such an appealing and attractive alternate to traveling down Fairway Road. I think staff have listened. They've made adjustments. The concerns about the loss of parking were listened to and accounted for. Parking studies show that the 74 parking spots will be enough to handle the current demand. Although they may not be as convenient. You may have to walk across the street or down the street a little bit. Staff did a good job engaging and taking the comments and adjusting the plan. They came right to the street to take input. Change is really hard. Council voted in this master plan in 2010, and that means staff have to implement it. And I think they've made adjustments and compromise. It may not be perfect, but it's a good compromise. And I want to thank the residents for coming out and sharing their opinions. I hope we get the same result here as we do on Union Street. Thank you.
Okay. We have no further comments. Recorded vote has been called for. Just listen to it. All those in favor, please stand. Opposed? Item has been carried. I have a question to staff on whether we're looking here at another hour left on the agenda items. I'm just wondering if we have a delegation with regards to item number 12. Do we have a delegation that's here for item number 12? Okay. Whether or not we just listen to the delegation and then go on to the next committee. It's an hour on this. What's that? Okay. All right. Well, we'll just go through it. Okay, so we're going to deal with item number 12 first because we do have a delegation here. We have a delegation. Okay. We're going to take 10 minutes debating this. Councillor Gazzola.
30 seconds. Can we not just hear the delegation because they're here, but leave the discussion and the staff presentation to another date? I don't think anything's going to come out of it that has an impact immediately. So we're running late. We've got a lot of stuff still ahead of us.
Okay. Well, I'm going to move ahead with the sidewalk. We're going to move ahead with it, and we're going to plow through this. No pun intended, exactly. Ms. Goldrick.
Okay. Thank you, Chair and members of Council. I'll try to move through this as quickly as I can. So first, I'd like to share what we've heard about sidewalk snow clearing. We gathered information, feedback in terms of our existing practice from the age-friendly community consultation, meetings with MAX, the Mayor's Advisory Committee for Kitchener Seniors, and GRAC, the Grand River Accessibility Committee, a discussion with past delegates from the October 2015 council meeting, a discussion with bylaw staff, and reviewing complaints received through the Corporate Contact Center. And the list that you see before you on the screen is not exhaustive, but highlights some of the key themes identified. And I do want to point out a strong theme with both MAX and GRAC related to concern for safety, accessibility, and the associated impact of isolation felt by residents with mobility challenges. Further, we heard that those that do venture out in the winter may need to turn back due to inconsistent surface conditions resulting in barriers and impassable conditions. For those residents not able to physically clear their sidewalks, they identified a need for affordable home support services. And we also received mixed feedback on the bare pavement requirement. Bare pavement is preferred from an accessibility perspective. However, we did receive some feedback from others, primarily the delegates from last year, that it is overly onerous. We reviewed complaints logged by the Corporate Contact Center, the majority being related to curb-face sidewalks, windrows at intersections, and unplowed or slippery sidewalks. So our current practice is that we currently maintain sidewalks fronting city-owned properties, sidewalks located at the back of properties and the downtown area, totaling 193 kilometers of sidewalks, or 16% of the 1,200 kilometers citywide. The average costs for sidewalk snow clearing between 2010 and 2015 was $895,000 annually. And the Corporate Contact Center logs complaints on city sidewalks as service requests, and we receive an average of 88 service requests annually. All other sidewalks are the responsibility of property owners, and the city bylaw stipulates clearing a bare surface within 24 hours of a snowfall. And for residents with mobility challenges, support services are available. However, the demand is high for those services. As part of the review, we looked to see what sidewalk snow clearing services other municipalities provided. And the majority of municipalities do have similar practices as Kitchener, including Cambridge and Waterloo. We did focus on municipalities that provided citywide service and found that citywide practices varied in terms of snow depth triggers to initiate sidewalk snow clearing and response times. We also found that all of the municipalities that we spoke with maintained to snowpacked conditions as a rule. However, some municipalities noted that they would try to maintain to bare surface in priority areas such as downtowns. I do want to point out that the photo on the screen was taken from a municipality with citywide snow clearing and shows an example of snowpacked conditions. And while not all municipalities had complaint data, those that were able to provide data noted that complaints increased after implementation of a citywide program. And the complaints were primarily related to sidewalk conditions, so depth of snow cover and sod damage. So staff, based on the information provided to us from other municipalities, we did evaluate the costs of providing citywide snow clearing. We extrapolated costs based on additional sidewalk plow routes that would be required to cover our sidewalk lengths. And we found that the estimated operating cost was would be $3.6 million annually, an increase of $2.75 million, and represents a 2.5% tax increase. In addition, if the city were to perform the work, there would be a one-time capital cost of approximately $4 million for the additional equipment required. I should point out we also evaluated contractor costs based on tender prices from another municipality. These costs were slightly higher than the estimated operating costs provided to you, but they are difficult to compare because the costs are influenced by service levels. So for example, the tender information we did receive that we evaluated were based on a 5-centimeter snow depth trigger and a response time of 24 to 36 hours. And while it would be difficult to predict based on feedback from other municipalities, it is likely that complaints may increase with a citywide program. So the staff report outlines a number of improvements, most notably those made in 2015 through the bylaw review. And these changes resulted in decreased complaints and faster response times, and we feel that there are opportunities for further improvements. I want to highlight a new initiative that the city is implementing, the Snow Angels program. The Snow Angels program is being recommended through the neighborhood strategy and calls on neighbors to be snow angels by assisting their neighbors to clear snow from sidewalks and driveways. It is community driven, and there's a lot of opportunity to draw on partnerships with neighborhood associations and local high schools for student volunteer hours. There are other initiatives underway that could also influence winter sidewalk maintenance service levels. These include a winter control review for both roads and sidewalks that will be initiated in 2017 to evaluate risk and identify opportunities for improvements. A strategic project in the business plan is the pilot study for a year-round maintenance of trails in the Glencairn School neighborhood, and we'll be bringing that information back to council for consideration of potential citywide service. And there are also anticipated revisions to the minimum maintenance standards of the Municipal Act that are likely to come into effect in 2017. Minimum maintenance standards right now are currently silent on sidewalk maintenance. However, the revisions will likely include requirements for sidewalks based on the information available. In addition, the impacts of the eye on LRT are not fully understood and need to be evaluated. So the staff recommendations before you today is that existing sidewalk snow clearing practices be maintained. However, we look to continuous improvement efforts to improve the service level and looking at addressing some of the problem areas. We want to continue to review and evaluate impacts of the proposed changes to the minimum maintenance standards and report back to council with this information. And I also want to note that staff are committed to continuing to work with MAX and GRAC to evaluate improvement initiatives and to bring back to them also what the minimum maintenance standards for sidewalk snow clearing may mean for the City of Kitchener and have that dialogue. We found the discussion very helpful in meeting with both of those committees. So I'm available for any questions.
Okay. I'm going to hear the delegation first, and then we'll get back to you with questions. Our delegation is Ms. Cleland. Can we have the podium lowered, please?
I promise I'll go very fast.
Welcome, Ms. Cleland.
It's pretty neat, eh? Thanks so much for allowing me to present today on behalf of the Grand River Accessibility Advisory Committee, also known as GRAC. Our mission is to assist the region of Waterloo, the cities of Kitchener and Waterloo, and the townships of North Dumfries, Woolwich, and Wellesley to fulfill the purpose of the Ontarians with Disabilities Act and the Accessibility for Ontarians with Disabilities Act by providing vision and advice in regards to the removal of physical, architectural, technological, and attitudinal barriers. To fulfill this mission, we felt it was vital to appear before you as a delegate regarding this very real physical barrier of snow on the sidewalks. We appreciate the Council's review of Kitchener's snow clearing policy and the transparency Denise McGoldrick demonstrated by reporting to GRAC on her committee prior to presenting it here today. GRAC has been crafting a position paper supporting the city taking responsibility for clearing the sidewalks as they do the streets. Though Ms. McGoldrick's report is making the opposite recommendation, it is encouraging to note the extra cost per household for citywide sidewalk clearing is a mere $26.29 a year. This cost is negligible, help me out here, people, negligible considering the impact it will have on the people of the Kitchener currently unable to freely travel throughout the winter months. For those of us who cannot vault over a snowbank, trudge through shin-high snow, or scramble around snowbanks, consistency of this sidewalk is essential. Under Kitchener's current snow clearing policy, this kind of consistency is absolutely impossible to maintain. Homeowners shovel their snow different times of the day. Even if they do it within the 24 hours, it will always be at different times of the day. And when the city plows the street, the curb corners often become undiscernible under a mountain of snow. It is essential a pedestrian is able to foresee the sidewalk conditions they face, allowing them to make a sound decision about whether it is safe to travel or not. On a human level, discovering unpassable conditions halfway down a street results in frustration, loss of time and opportunity, unnecessary isolation, and emotional duress. On a financial level, it creates unnecessary dependence on limited community resources designed to support those with special needs, or causes needless accidents in attempts to pass the unpassable. On a very personal note, speaking on behalf of myself rather than GRAC, I have an 18-year-old daughter who is completely blind. I have had the opportunity to witness her growing up with our city's current policy standards on sidewalk clearing. My daughter loves adventure. She's an avid skier. She loves to tackle downhill ski slopes, and she's starting to do black diamond slopes. She's also anxious to grab the back of the handle of a rope to go wakeboarding. She loves her alone time and takes her dog around the block many times. Over the years, I have watched her eliminate that activity in the winter. She is afraid of getting lost going down her own street. There is no time after the snow falls that Alyssa can predict the conditions of the sidewalk. It has an enormous impact on her self-esteem and independence. I cannot begin to describe how it feels to powerlessly witness this slow erosion of hard-won self-confidence. The price of change is a mere $26.29 a year. That's less than the cost of 4 specialty Starbucks coffees. Consistent, accessible, safe sidewalks are essential for the safety of all citizens, most especially little ones walking to school, parents with strollers, the elderly, people with mobility issues, and anybody with a physical challenge. Some of us have the choice to take a chance and vault that snowbank. However, many of us do not. We beseech you to decide in favor of City Walk snow clearing of sidewalks. For accessibility, equity, and humanity, it's really the only thing to do.
Thank you. Are these all questions for the delegation that are all keyed in? Yours is? Sarah, yours is too? Okay, Councillor Marsh.
Thank you so much for sharing your position on behalf of GRAC, and then also to share your personal story. And I'm so sorry to hear that, it's not been a positive experience in the winter along your street. I just have one question. At first, when I started thinking about this issue, I was all in favor of the city taking on snow clearing across the city. But then when I started to look into it further, I found that the inconsistent, service levels in other cities where they have implemented this type of citywide snow clearing would not be any more satisfactory than the ones that we currently have with other people shoveling snow. And so my question to you would be, how do you think we might be able to, how can we possibly get all of the snow clearers that work for the city or contracted out by the city to get out to all the streets in your scenario? Can you offer another solution?
Absolutely. The reality is, it's the consistency that's a problem. So when you leave home, you need to know what you're going to face, right? Just walking down the street or traveling down the street, you need to know what you're going to face. Mm-hmm. If what you face here is different than what you face there, just in a block, then there is never a safe time to travel. Mm-hmm. So we need to be more progressive about clearing snow, mm-hmm. and maybe we need to look at hiring snow clearers to do the sidewalks. Mm-hmm. Maybe that needs to be part of it. Just because other people have not done it well doesn't mean we can't do it well.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I like your optimism. But I'm just, even when when you look at snow clearing of the roadway, can you rely on the consistent time every time there's a snowfall that the snowplow comes out to get rid of the snow?
It doesn't have to be a consistent time. Uh-huh. It just has to be a consistent path. Uh-huh. What I'm saying is, maybe you can't go out now. That's okay. That's life. You can't always travel, yeah. But there has to be some level of consistency, yeah. To know that, okay, I'm on the sidewalk now, the bottom of the street's going to look the same. Mm-hmm.
And I fully agree with you. I would think that there might be other ways to get there, but thank you so much.
Councillor Schneider.
Thank you, Chair Ioannidis. Thank you so much for coming in and sharing your experience, especially with your daughter. I'm just wondering what you would feel would be a good response time. So snow falls overnight and you wake up in the morning. when should the snow be gone off the sidewalk?
Do you know what? I think your best is always good enough. And I think that you try to do it as expediently as possible, and you certainly would take care of the areas that people travel the most. I think there needs to be consistency. I cannot say consistency enough, because if people get used to things, okay, when the snow falls, these are the streets that get done first, and these are the next ones, they will get used to that. And then they will know that, okay, if this street's safe to travel on, then this street will be good to travel on. It's not... Yes, we need to do it expediently, just like we need to do the streets expediently. And we need to do the ones that are used the most first. But we need to do all of them, because just like you wouldn't like to be driving your car and to go down a street and it not be like it be partially plowed and then the rest not plowed, that wouldn't work for people in cars. It doesn't work for people in wheelchairs and any other means on the sidewalk. Our whole position as a community is to be pedestrian friendly. And I think this is essential, to be pedestrian friendly. The consistency is key. It's not about big bad boy who didn't shovel his snow, my neighbor. You know, he may work nights, you know, and the snow might have fallen at a different time. It needs to be consistency. Does that make sense?
It makes sense. It's difficult when we're dealing with 1,200 kilometers of sidewalk. You know, the expectations, we have to really manage expectations. I think you're right, there has to be priorities with the sidewalks in the order they would be done, but meaning residential streets would probably be the last to be plowed.
Probably, but I mean, at least there'd be consistency. At least at some juncture, at some point in time, things would get done. At this point in time, you don't know.
Okay. So just to be clear, so you're saying, like, for example, if on your street the snow was not cleared until 6 p.m., as long as that was consistent,
well,
and you can
that's
count
the
on that?
time of the day. I'm saying, you know, snow falls every time. We live in Canada all the time. So if the snow is cleared consistently on this street first, this street next, you know, if there's a consistent pattern of it always being cleared the same way, then that's what we need to do. It really should be done within 24 hours. All of the sidewalks need to be done within 24 hours. But it needs to be consistent so people can plan their lives around it. Currently, you know, we have SAD, right? You know, seasonal, what is it? Seasonal...
Affective disorder?
That's right. So imagine being a person with that and then being isolated because you can't get out. There's a whole lot of reasons why this needs to be done well. And I really think that all you need to do is be consistent.
Is there a depth of snow on the sidewalk that you would begin to say, okay, we need to clear this?
You know what? The paper that the BRAC is doing does have that information on it. Unfortunately, I don't have it in front of me.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks for listening, by the way, guys. I really do appreciate it. This is nerve-wracking being in front of you, just so you know that, but it's really nice to be heard.
You're doing a great job. We do have some further questions for you. Councillor Gazzola.
I don't have any questions of the delegate other than to thank them for coming in. And it would be nice if you could get a copy of your report to council so that it could be circulated for another time. My questions are of staff.
Okay, can you keep back in? Councillor Singh, is yours questions of staff? Okay, so it's all now up for questions. Thank you, Mrs. Cleland. Ms. Cleland? Councillor Singh?
So that would be questions of staff now?
Yes, go right ahead.
Okay. So I'm looking at this report, and I think it does a good job in showing kind of experiences that have been noted by municipalities that do street sidewalk clearing, snow clearing, and in comparison to us, and the costs related. So I just need a little clarification on the cost. So right now, I'm seeing under status quo 12-5, based on, I'm just going to round it off, based on around 200 kilometers, it's costing us an annual maintenance operation cost of about $900,000, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
So that's 6 times a factor going to 1,200 kilometers. but we're saying that it would only cost 3,600. I'm just amazed that we would have that amount of efficiencies of scale, that where it costs $1 million just to do 200, but it will only cost approximately around 3.5 to do 1,200 kilometers.
So through you, Chair, with efficiencies of scale, there is, right now, currently, we're doing a lot of travel time from sidewalk to sidewalk location. So what we did was we looked at overall the routing and adjusting routing to allow for that continuous sidewalk clearing. So that was in the analysis. And then we took those routes and applied the cost per route to that to arrive at the 3.6. Now, what I should mention is, I mean, these are estimated costs. If we were to do the service delivery in-house, there'd be the capital cost on top of that. What's not factored in here is equipment storage and incremental staff costs associated with administrative piece. So this is strictly related.
And ongoing maintenance of that equipment as well.
That's correct.
Right. And it doesn't include fuel costs?
It does. So actually, I should point that it would include our unit rates for equipment costs, which incorporate fuel and maintenance and ultimately replacement.
Okay. No, and I realize that, and that's what I expected, seeing the difference between those two numbers. But the concern is, and this is why sometimes out of this report, I see the same thing, and when the number jumps out as $26 increase, I'm like, well, that's $26. That's not a lot. The fact that that's a tremendous service delivery to our residents. But that stops me to realize things sometimes may cost something at the beginning, but they tend to inflate over time. But the numbers that we have here, as you're saying, due to efficiencies that you don't have to go back and forth or travel time between different locations, that also accounts to, I'm assuming, based on these numbers, our response time, as heard from the delegate, as to consistency. I'm assuming that this is we're not going to be looking at immediate clearance of snow off our sidewalks as soon as there's snowfall. That we have multiple different crews going rapidly all at once, and it all dissipates immediately. What type of response time would you say based on these numbers as a cost estimate?
So it's difficult to say. I think it really depends on the depth of snowfall. The quantity, certainly when you have additional snowfall depths, it's more difficult to push the snow, and it takes much longer to clear a route. If I were to estimate, I would be estimating the 24 to 72 hour response time. 24
to 72 hours. And when we have continuous snowfall, I think we have a good system. Well, I'm going to be biased with this statement, but the system that we have right now, it puts the onus on the homeowners, and many of us act responsibly and clear the snow as is falling, over multiple day period. Would it be very difficult for us to have clear surface when we have ongoing snowfalls? Would it be probably a longer period than that in certain points of the winter?
Ms. Fletcher?
Through the chair, one other piece of information, it would be similar to our road clearing. We would look at the depth of snow at the cessation of the snowfall. So to your point, if we have a day and a half or 2 days worth of snowfall, we're not necessarily out there during the snowstorm.
Right.
It's the depth at the cessation of the snowfall.
So ultimately, we're failing to meet our own standards that we have of bare sidewalk, bare concrete. One quick question for clarification: these numbers don't add up for me. We're saying about a 2.5% rate increase to our tax base if you were to go with this model.
That's correct. Yeah.
But I'm looking at 3.6 as the sidewalk clearing maintenance as operation. Isn't 1 million equatable to 1% increase?
1.2. 1.2.
No, it's a difference. I see. That's a difference. Okay, it's not additional 3.6 million. It's okay, factored in, and there's capital, and that still to the additional point. But I'll ring back in for further questions.
You're good. Okay, Councillor Gazzola.
Yeah. Has there ever been any public engagement on this? And is there any contemplated?
So through you, Chair, in preparation of this report, we reached out through existing means, so there wasn't any additional public engagement or consultation other than to speak with committees of council and to speak with past delegates that had appeared before council. Also looking at other projects underway, such as the age-friendly community and the neighborhood strategy. Should council want to explore a citywide program, it would be staff's recommendation that a broader consultation process be established.
Okay, the reason I asked that, because there was a resident in our community, Mr. McGaffin, who had come forward had done a fair amount of research, and some of his figures were not different than yours, and that's why I wondered if there was any public engagement or whether there's any contemplated at this point. Go ahead.
Through you, Chair, I did speak with Mr. McGaffin, and we met about the report. He provided me with the information that he provided to council. He was very helpful, and I understand the information and his recommendation to me as staff was to explore programs for seniors and those with mobility challenges, and that information I forwarded on. It dovetailed quite nicely with the age-friendly work being performed. So that
okay, that's fine. My time is being used up here. You talk about the provinces coming out with minimum maintenance standards changes. Are we aware of what they're talking about? Do we have any discussion when they indicate that they're doing these sorts of things?
Through the chair, maybe I can answer a couple of questions here. So we anticipate having the proposed minimum maintenance standards by the end of the first quarter of next year. We do have a staff member who sits on the Municipal Engineering Board who is part of the process of reviewing the minimum maintenance standards. There are some significant potential changes that are being explored right now. We would anticipate being back to council likely by the end of the second quarter of next year with further information on those maintenance standards and also the impact of the ION route to our winter maintenance measures. As in terms of the question about public engagement, one of the reasons that we have not engaged the public fully at this point is we'd rather have the full and complete information on some of those other items before we would go out and engage the community.
Good, okay. So you're coming back in the second quarter, so you're going to come back to council before the end of June 2017.
Through the chair, we would anticipate bringing back to council by that time frame, especially if there are any budget impacts for the 2018 budget.
Okay, thank you. The $900,000 that we're incurring right now does include replacing the equipment, depreciation, and all that. So the $3.6 million is based on the same basis, is it not?
That's correct.
Yeah, even though the fact that we would have to acquire the equipment up front, but that would be acquired via a reserve system. So you're not, is the cost $3.6 million plus $4 million up front?
Mr. Chapman?
Through the chair, that last statement is correct. We pre-fund additions and upgrades, and then we recover the replacement costs through the life cycle contributions. So our existing capital budget has a line for any additions and upgrades, and we would need to dramatically increase it to fund the acquisition of these ones.
Does the $3.6 million have annual depreciation costs in it? The same as the $900,000 does?
Yes, it does.
It does. So those are comparative figures.
They are, but they don't provide for the upfront acquisition.
Well, no, that's another issue. Okay. Those are the only questions I have, and I'm looking forward. I don't know what's the right answer here, but I would like someday to be able to see a comprehensive study, and I think it's important that we do go out to the public and hear the comments from the public. And to do that, we need to have some good information when we go that route. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Davey? How did you get Councillor Davey?
Thank you, Chair Anadis. Is it safe to say that the result of the province looking at this will be more stringent standards than we have today?
Through the chair, that is correct.
Okay. And I think I heard that you expect to be back before committee in the first quarter of next year?
Through the chair, we anticipate a full understanding of what those new maintenance standards will be by the end of the first quarter of next year. We may not be back to council by the end of the first quarter of next year, but certainly by the end of the second quarter.
Okay, this item strikes me as something that is simple enough in understanding, to be frank, in terms of the costing and expectations that we could do the ultimate form of public engagement in terms of referendum. So my question would be, do we know the deadline when that we'd have to have any referendums in by in order to have them on the ballot for 2018? Or can staff if the appropriate staff is in here, they can get back to us on that.
Mr. Chapman?
Through the chair, unless Tim knows the answer today, I know that Colin Goodeve has looked into that question before and does have those deadlines with respect to this term of council, so that could be sent out by email.
Okay, I'll have comment on that as well, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Yaneski?
Yeah, thank you for the report. I really thought it was very well detailed out and excellent presentation of all the information. Although I do have a couple of questions dealing with the information, and I really need clarification on it. So, right now you maintain 193 kilometers of sidewalk, which is city-owned frontages and stuff like that. But if you do the whole project, the whole city will be 1,200 kilometers, right? So, of the 193 kilometers that you do right now, and then you have a maintenance of 900,000 a year roughly, how does that calculate into how much maintenance there is per snowfall? Because we don't have one snowfall per winter, we have several. And I'm not sure what number you're using. And of course, some snowfalls are more than other. But on the other hand, you don't do any maintenance unless you have at least 2.5 centimeters of snowfall. So if you only get what we had overnight right now, you probably wouldn't do anything. So that wouldn't count. Is that sort of a multiple question there?
Through you, Chair, just to detail, in terms of the analysis performed, we looked at the number of existing routes and how much of a route can be accomplished with, our staff and equipment. So one route equals one staff person and one piece of equipment. So we extrapolated that out for a citywide program. And then we looked at costs between 2010 and 2015. And so it wasn't a per snowfall cost, it's an average cost for the year. And we looked at that cost on a per route basis. And then based on what that average cost per route would be, and the increase in the number of routes, that's how the costs were extrapolated out for a citywide program. Does that make sense?
So how many snowfalls per season would that calculate into your analysis?
Unfortunately, I don't have that information. It would be the average number of snowfalls annually between 2010 and 2015.
Ms. Fletcher, you it's been addressed? Okay. Go ahead, Councillor Yaneski.
Is she finding an answer?
Through the chair, I was just going to summarize what Ms. McGoldrick just said. It was an average, a 5-year average that we looked at.
Okay, now I know you do averages for the whole year, but it's got to be a number in there somewhere. Okay, that's fine. So, on an average snowfall, if it's less than 2.5 centimeters, you don't do anything. And if it's another 2 centimeters tomorrow, you won't do anything either? Or do you add the two together to say, well, now we're up to 4 over the last 3 days? Then you do something, or you just only do what per snowfall? And let it just sort of build up on the sidewalk.
So through you, Chair, we would look at over the total depth of snowfall on the sidewalk. So yes, we're looking at snowfall depths that have fallen based on actual depths, but over a 2-day period, we would consider that the full depth of snow, and unless it's melting in terms of the forecast and the temperatures, we would look to deploy resources at that
Okay,
point.
so it's a guessing game to a degree in terms of how much and then what's predicted as well, etc. In your report, you talk about staff having 88 complaints on an annual basis, which is sort of reasonable. Yet, if you go citywide based on the other municipalities, you're up to 1,150. What's the rationale or what's the reasons for all of a sudden you're providing citywide coverage, yet your complaints are about 8 times worse? Why?
So through you, Chair, in speaking with the other municipalities in terms of the type of complaints, a lot of the complaints relate to sod damage. So it's based on the type of equipment used. A homeowner using a shovel or a snowblower, thank you, doesn't do the same type of damage, and as a trackless unit has the potential to do. So a lot of the complaints, the new type of complaints that we would see would be related to sod damage. I think also expectations, if the city is maintaining, I believe, citizen expectations in terms of response time and depths, et cetera, they're more likely to call the city to complain about the city than to call the city perhaps to complain about a neighbor.
Okay. I've got more questions because my time's up. Eh?
You can cue back in,
Sure.
Councillor Neske. Councillor Singh.
So when you have 1,200 kilometers of roadway, would it be fair to assume that's around 1,200 individual streets, identifiable streets, or more than that, or in that ballpark?
I'm sorry, through you, Chair, I don't have a response to that.
No, I was just trying to play with numbers a little bit. If you gave each street a snowblower, it comes to around 700,000 to 800,000. And anyways, I regress. So how does it happen on street and cities that do snow clearing for their residents? Where residents would have to clear their driveway to get out, they would have to clear out their the front of the boulevard where if a snowplow has come by, there's a snowbank there. So would they just skip the sidewalk and just go onto the boulevard side and clear that and leave the sidewalk for it to be cleared by the city? Or do we look at that type of metric as well, that aspect of inefficiency where the sidewalk's already been cleared because the residents has gone out there to clean their driveway, and we got these machines running, or there would be machines running on sidewalks, and effectively not doing anything because snow has already been cleared.
Ms. Fletcher, you want to address that?
Through the chair, I think you're coming at it from two avenues. These numbers that Ms. McGoldrick and staff have developed are based on an efficiency of we go right straight down the sidewalk. So to your point, we wouldn't be looking at skipping any areas. The other thing is we are talking about sidewalk snow clearing. So in terms of driveways, walkways to a front door, that's still the homeowner's responsibility or the property owner's responsibility.
Okay, that's what I assumed. So I was half joking when I said, in assuming that there's, each street is about 1 kilometer long and there's 1,200 streets out there, and if we bought a snowblower for every street and gave it to a volunteer, and it would cost around 800,000 based on approximately 600,000 per snowblower, and with efficiencies that cost might be even less. So that just aside, did we consider some of that aspect of kind of a volunteerism, but where we would upfront the capital cost, but there may be a snow angel on each street that would have taken uptake on doing it on behalf of their street at relatively no operating cost other than the capital, which is a snowblower?
So through you, Chair, we didn't specifically explore.
Let's say it's cost 1,000. If it's a riding snowblower, we wouldn't want someone pushing it. That's asking too much of someone, and it costs 1.2 in relative cost. Did we consider something like that?
So through you, Chair, not as part of this analysis, however, through discussions around the Snow Angels program, I think there's opportunity to explore what that looks like on a neighborhood basis. So whether it be through providing tools and equipment or matching neighbors up, I think there's a lot of opportunity through the Snow Angels program. That concept of neighborhoods coming together, neighbors helping neighbors, so that something along the concept that you're thinking about could be explored.
So are we jumping the gun perhaps? Might not it be better for us to see how that program is initiated before we consider considerable expenditures of making a city-mandated program?
Ms. Fletcher?
Through the chair, I think that's exactly why staff is making the recommendation that we are today, that we maintain our current sidewalk snow clearing standards for 2016-17, and we look to bring back further information for council to consider long term.
So what I'm saying is it's not necessarily a do-nothing response or status quo. There's a lot that's still in the process of other alternatives that are being looked at. It's simply, maybe now it's not the time to consider this.
Through the chair, that's exactly right. We just don't feel we can put all of the information in front of council today.
Okay. Good, thank you.
Councillor Fernandez?
Thanks. Lots of questions for you, Ms. McGoldrick. Have we ever thought about breaking out possible sidewalk snow removal into different pieces? So we do, of course, city-owned properties. Sometimes those city-owned properties are along a stretch that goes towards a school. So if we were to consider that an additional piece, so that routes to school could be done as part of a snow clearing, and then possibly add on something that, and often these are combined, are transit routes and school routes. Have we thought about doing that as sort of a first step towards sidewalk snow clearing?
Ms. Fletcher?
Through the chair, maybe I'll jump in here. One of the things that we are doing on an ongoing basis is working with the school boards to look at maintenance from their side of the table and maintenance from the city's side of the table as well. I would point to the Glen Cairn project as a pilot project. So there are things in the works already, but at this point we're not recommending the city taking on additional.
Right, and that's why I thought, I mean, a perfect case example I'm thinking is St. Kateri School, which has city frontage, school frontage, and then, before you know it, you're at Dune Village Road, and expanding that kind of snow clearing, which feeds a lot of school children and makes it a safer route to school for them. But it was just sort of seeing if we could take a staged approach to it.
Okay. Councillor Davey?
I don't have questions, Councillor Etherington.
Councillor Etherington?
Through you, Mr. Chair, just some very quick questions. Denise, do you live in Kitchener?
That's irrelevant.
No, I just want to ask you.
That's irrelevant.
Okay, well then I'll put it to Cynthia. Do you live in Kitchener, and when you go away on vacation, do you pay someone to remove your snow? The question is, I don't need an answer, but the question just piggybacks on Councillor Singh. I would believe that if an alternate to this, a cheaper alternate, would be to actually pay people with a snowblower to remove snow. On my street, people with a snowblower do practically the entire sidewalk. So maybe that's a comment, not a question.
Okay. Councillor Yaneski?
Thank you. The analysis that you have here talks that it would cost so much per household, et cetera, based on your calculations. But what about properties that are not households? So you're going along a street, and of course you mentioned schools. What about if you've got a church? What about if you've got a commercial property? Would they be cleared, or you just stop at that particular property and do not know it? And what about industrial lands and that happens to also fall in mid-blocks or at certain subdivisions? Are we just ignoring those land uses or just ducking residential?
So through you, Chair, no, the intent of the program would be citywide if we were to implement such. And the cost per household is really just to try to give it, I guess, a qualifier in terms of what a 2.5% property tax increase would look like to the average homeowner. Of course, the 2.5% would be quite different depending on your property value, the type of property you have, if it's industrial, commercial. Those folks that are exempt from taxes, they would still be provided the service. It would be something that the rest of the taxpayers would bear as part of an estimated 2.5% increase.
You mentioned 2.5% tax increase. Is that a one-time increase, or are you talking just operation? Are you talking capital? You need $4 million there to get stuff, equipment, etc. So are we looking sort of a bigger figure in the first year versus other years?
Ms. Fletcher? Oh, you got queued out.
Through the chair, I think what Ms. McGoldrick and team were trying to do was give council an order of magnitude kind of number. I'm not sure that there's a lot to be gained by spending time analyzing that number.
Okay, now just wondering, because I just assumed we were talking residential, so I have no idea. Going down a residential street with an equipment, what do you do when you come to a corner? You just go right through across the street to the other side and just keep going? And then all of a sudden the snowplow comes around and then dumps all the stuff back into the corner? Like, how do you handle those situations?
Ms. Fletcher?
Through the chair, what we can assure council is that there is pretty significant effort in terms of route planning related to street clearing and then sidewalk clearing.
I'm sure there will be effort made to try to coordinate as best as possible to avoid duplication in any way. So, okay, I don't have any other questions.
Okay. No further questions. Councillor Davey.
Yeah, sure. So I'll move staff's recommendation, and I'll comment now, Mr. Chair, if that's okay. Yeah, I think staff is being cautious in the approach, and there is new guidelines that will be coming down from the province at some point. And I think at this point it's anyone's guess as to what exactly those guidelines may be. It's not impossible that the province could force us to start clearing city streets. So I'm happy to wait until this comes back. We did get a message from our staff in terms of the referendum, if we wanted to visit that at some point down the road. We have plenty of time for that. It's very likely that it would not be binding because you need 50% of the residents to vote, and they have to vote in favor. But I do think that this is a tool that if it comes back, and this is something that people are interested in, I've always been a fan of. Well, to be frank, before we would look at ever saddling our residents with an additional 2 to 3% increase for a new service, I think the least we could do would be to ask them if that's the direction that staff or council would like to go. So just giving a forewarning on that, but at this point that's all premature, and I'm just happy to move the recommendation.
Thank you. Councillor Galloway-Seelock.
Yeah, I just quickly wanted to say that I understand that this is a cautious approach. There's a few questions that staff still need to look at addressing before we could really look at this the way we need to comprehensively with regards to some of the concerns that they've raised through the report. I think at the end of the day, a lot of it comes down to we all have to be good neighbors and get out there and shovel the snow off of our sidewalks. And I think we have a program that we're looking at in the Snow Angels that's there to assist those who can't do that. And so I appreciate Don for coming in on behalf of GRAC, and I appreciate GRAC's stance, especially as the council representative on that committee currently until Councillor Marsh takes over. I think I understand and appreciate everywhere where they're coming from, and their stance has never wavered in the 10 years that I've sat around that table, and it never will, because there are challenges. There will always be challenges for those with mobility issues, with those who need that consistency, and so I can fully appreciate that. And I think at some point in time there is going to be legislation that mandates us. At the end of the day, you have to remember sidewalks belong to the city. And so if there's legislation, it's going to fall back on us to make sure that we follow those requirements. So I think that's probably coming down, and I think at some point we're not going to have any choice. But right now I think there's too many unanswered questions, and I agree, if we are going to go down this road any further, we need to have that full public engagement. And so I say this is for this year, and I look forward to staff bringing it back, and we can look at it again. And if as a council we want to go forward, we need to do that full public engagement and be prepared to do it right if we're going to look at this decision, if it's not handed down to us from the province.
Thank you. Councillor Etherington.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Excuse me. While I certainly sympathise with Dawn, who did such a great job before us this afternoon, I don't think taxpayers on the whole are prepared to have the city spend multi-millions of dollars to have Kitchener do its best, and I would stress that, to keep kilometres of sidewalks clear. Now, having said that, I would certainly be prepared to pay more than $30 for a service to clear snow in front of my house through the winter. But I don't think the majority of councillors would do so, and many of them would not be able to afford to do so. And even if we did, it wouldn't do much for seniors and others who can't clear their own sidewalks. We could not guarantee the kind of service that they would need. And so all that I'd say is that instead of considering such a, to me, pie-in-the-sky proposal, I'd like to see us do more to upgrade and financially support the overworked services that do exist and have existed for years to help those seniors and others who are unable to shovel snow.
Thank you. Councillor Yaneski.
I'm prepared to support the report as continuing on the way we're going right now. I see that if we move forward and try to implement a citywide, I think you're going to have more problems. You're going to have more complaints. The time for snow removal, you could be 3 days before you even see a snowplow go by on your sidewalk, according to this, depending on how much snow that you get. And most people will want to have it cleared within 24 hours. And there are very diligent people out there that will get it done within 24, even 48 hours. And then waiting for, you're going to have more problems than happy campers, basically. Also, on this, when you think about what you have to shovel, I mean, the sidewalk's probably the least of the three components of snow maintenance on your property. I mean, you've got your driveway, which is probably longer and more square foot area than your sidewalk is. And then at the bottom of the driveway, and that's probably a smaller area, but boy, when a snowplow goes through, you've got about 10 times more snow to shovel in one spot than you have on the sidewalk. So clearing the sidewalk may only be maybe less than 25% of all the snow removal. You've still got 75% of your property to take care of. I see this as a step backwards in terms of trying to deal with it. I know some residents say, yeah, let's do it. I don't think they really know the whole implication and all the problems that it would generate in the end. And I know a lot of people still want to continue on and do it because clearing it right with a shovel probably does a better job than what the snowplow vehicle does along the sidewalk. So those are my comments.
Thank you. Councillor Singh.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. And quickly, and I appreciate the position that GRAC has taken and the impassioned appeal that Dawn made and her giving her personal story. The perspective that I see this is that 72 hours is nowhere near what would be required to meet the necessary requirements for exactly what Dawn laid out. Especially during winter where there's continuous snowfall, 3 days of snow clearing on the sidewalk, I wouldn't appreciate my neighbor not clearing the sidewalk for that long, and I definitely wouldn't appreciate if the city took that long. So the numbers that I see, I think is bare minimum standard, and if we were going to do it, we would have to do it right. It would have to be effective and something that's of substance and meaning. And that would mean that it would probably be multiples of what the cost that we see on 12-5. Because of that, the costs are so extraordinary that it's unfair for us to be able to take a position on it without having a clear perspective of what our community wants as a whole. I hear what Councillor Davey has said, that the right format to go is perhaps a referendum where everyone would have a voice. I'm not a fan of referendums, and clearly seeing what's happening across the world, especially Europe, referendums don't always work the right way. But at least the bare minimum what we should have done and should do down the road as we continue to consider this. I don't think this is the end-all of this discussion, but a extensive community dialogue and engagement, and we have good experience in being able to assess the true essence of feelings of our community, like the backyard chicken bylaw. We had quite a bit of respondents on our survey, and I'm sure we would have the equal representation through a survey if we asked our citizens' opinion on this. So simply, again, I think there are a lot better effective ways for us to assist our citizens that are unable to clear their sidewalks through perhaps the Snow Angel program. We should look at other avenues as well. We can even try to get creative as the province makes those requirements more stringent on the municipality. And I started with more of a joke about it, but I think there's seriousness into it. If we can have our citizens do it better, there's no point the government should be jumping in to do it for them. I think our citizens are able, if you give them the right tools to be able to do it and give them assistance. And I think that in itself would allow them to help their neighbors as well. And I think that's creating a good community, not just doing everything for them. So based on that, I support the recommendation, but I think further dialogue and discussion should still continue to evolve.
Thank you. Councillor Gazzola.
Yes, I will be supporting what's before us, and I'm pleased to see what has come back to us already from staff. In fairness to them, there's a lot of decisions are being made here, and a lot of figures thrown out, and they really haven't had an opportunity to fully delve into this situation. I don't know what the right answer is. Is that the direction we go in? Yes, it's costly, but it is something that I'm hearing more and more about. The important thing is that there are two things. As the province are making changes, I hope we're at the table and discussing those changes and having some say into those changes before they come forward. And then the second part is that there needs to be some real public engagement and discussion on this to give our residents an opportunity to discuss the issue. But in doing that, we need to have better figures, better estimates that I'm confident with the proper amount of time our staff can deal with and can come up with the answers with good investigation. I hope that we can deal with this in the second quarter of next year so that if we do want to make changes or contemplate going out on a referendum or something like that, that we do have enough time to do it properly and not rush at the last minute. So I think just dealing with this today and spending the amount of time that we have on it is a good step forward, and it's something that we need to stay on top of.
Thank you. Councillor Fernandez.
Thanks. I just opened up the email from Mr. Chapman about the referendum opportunity, and I think that I know that when the City of Waterloo put forward the referendum on fluoridation, that it certainly increased the attendance and the outcome of that vote. Certainly there was a lot more people that came and voted. So maybe this is something that we maybe should be putting our head to. That is the ultimate in public engagement. If people are out voting and they know that there's that question on the ballot, then we'll know for sure what people want to do. And we certainly have to put out a bit more information in terms of what the cost implications are. But if we expect that the province is going to be coming down with some changes in the minimum standards, we might want to be a little bit proactive and hear from our residents before and put out what that might cost our residents before we are forced to do it in a certain timeline by the province. So, I mean, that gives us until March of the election year to figure out how we could put that on the ballot. And I think that might be something we should be maybe putting our heads to at this time. I will be supporting the recommendation.
Thank you, and I'll make my comments quickly. I'll be supporting the recommendation, even though I've been hearing this issue quite often with residents, but also I'm very sympathetic towards members of GRAC and their concerns. And in addition, I've been sitting on the age-friendly committee, and this was a major concern that's been brought up. But looking at all the pieces right now, there's too many moving pieces, and without even having significant public consultation, I can't really support this at this time, especially when we're looking at costs and the financial pressures that we have on our residents right now with regards to with their infrastructure costs and as well with hydro costs through the province and everything else. I can't make that decision right now, and I'm glad that this is coming back. So with that, all those in favor?
Do we have a recorded vote?
It's unanimous. Okay. All right. What's that? Yeah. You didn't vote. Okay. All recorded vote. Okay. We have one more issue. Is that what you're... Unanimous. Okay. Councillor Singh, you have a question? We have one more item.
I'll just mention this right now. I think I may have stepped out at that point, but in our consent items for number 2, I wanted to declare a pecuniary interest as my parents own property right beside that development. So if you could just retake the vote on the consent items, just for that one at least, separately. Yeah.
Okay.
I know vote was taken, but if you could retake the vote, taking into account my
okay, so
conflict.
why don't we just retake the vote for that one item then?
Please.
Okay. All those in favor?
Item number 2.
Consent item number 2. Okay, thank you. All right, next item up is dealing with the Dune Village Road Traffic Calming Review. There's no presentation. Councillor Fernandez.
Yeah, I'd like to move it at the appropriate time as this is in my ward. I have one question for Mr. Ken Carmichael, please. Showing on the picture on 11-4, it shows that the lane traveling, let's say north, I guess, on Dune Village Road, on the right-hand lane, we're going to have a throughway and a right-hand turn. There has been a concern expressed from some residents who use the bus. There is a bus stop right near there, and I'm a little bit concerned that we're going to see some backing up in that right-hand lane and people swerving out into the turning lane to get past them to go towards Homer Watson. Have we thought about that?
Mr. Carmichael.
Thank you. Through the chair, in response, without specifically talking to staff, we'll certainly follow up on that issue of the bus stop in that turn lane. There might be a number of options to address that, whether it be if transit were prepared to relocate the stop so that we don't create that potential negative impact in the intersection. But yeah, we're happy to follow up with you separately on that afterwards.
That would be great. There's also a bike lane right there too. So you're going to be hitting dealing with both pedestrians waiting for the bus as well as people with bikes crossing there. So that'd be great if you can get back to me on that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we have no further questions or comments. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. That concludes Community Infrastructure Service agenda. I want to thank the folks out here that are waiting for our next meeting, waiting patiently, and thank you for that. Councillor Singh.
Yes, I realize we are running behind schedule, but I think we do need to refresh our mind a little bit, just a 2-minute break while we have the system. Just say 2 to 3 minutes.
So Mr. May has a suggestion for us?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair. I guess you don't like my... There we go. Okay, thank you. One of the suggestions, if council was so inclined, would be of the items on planning and strategic initiatives, item number 2 is less time sensitive than the others. Given how the schedule is playing out for December 12th, we could defer that item to a special council meeting on December 12th, and that'll free up some time for you today. The others are time sensitive.